Chapter 225, Great Xia Civilization Academy 2. Chapter 225, Chapter 71 Great Xia Civilization Academy 2. Apart from that, the various major departments would also be split into smaller departments. Just the divine runes alone had many different classifications. According to the different characteristics of the divine runes, the number of mastery would be different, and the fighting methods would be different. They would also be split into different factions. In the academy, there was a peace department that was only in charge of researching cultivation methods. They did not pay attention to their own combat strength, and their main goal was to study various cultivation methods. Such people usually existed in the willpower department, and their willpower was very strong. Towards the end, Tao Xing asked, "Suyu, which one do you choose?" Suyu hesitated for a moment and said, "It's probably the divine literature faculty." From what he heard, it seemed that only the divine literature faculty and the willpower faculty were more suitable for him. However, he had already condensed the divine literature and tasted the sweetness of the divine literature. At this time, purely cultivating willpower, Suyu probably would not do so. In front, Zhao Li slightly raised his eyebrows. This kid, as expected, was the divine literature still attractive? What was wrong with casting weapons? It was not like casting weapons could not cultivate divine literature. Although there were divisions among civilized masters, most people would mix and cultivate. Very few people would take the extreme path of only one path. Divine literature was the foundation of many factions, and all the major factions more or less knew a little about it. Tao Xing laughed when he heard this. "I also want to choose the divine language department. As for which one to choose, we'll talk about it when we get to the academy. In any case, we're all high class, so we have a lot of choices. Unlike the others, most of them are arranged by the academy. Some of the new students didn't have strong willpower right now, and the divine language wasn't sketched out. In fact, it was more or less the same whichever path they chose. In order to prevent some small factions from disappearing, the academy would also arrange for some people to study." Suyu nodded. Tao Xing was much more reliable than Hu Zongqi. Although there was also a sense of superiority, it was a natural reaction. It was only revealed inadvertently during the conversation, so they could still talk. That Hu Zongqi guy could not talk. This guy was not only like this to Suyu, but also to the students of the other cities. He was not very likable. After being swept by Researcher Hu a few times, he was now a little more low-key. While chatting, time passed very quickly. The sky gradually darkened. Before arriving at the Great Xia Manor, Suyu could already feel the difference and feel the prosperity. At this moment, they had already entered the Great Xia Manor's city region, which could be considered as the outskirts of the city. On the wide avenue, trees lined both sides of the avenue. Some scattered houses were also very clean and tall. Passing by some villages, one could still see many people practicing martial arts. On the road, there were more and more cars. The further they drove, the more prosperous it was. Passing by some market towns, it even looked more prosperous than the southern Yuan. Even at night, it was still brightly lit and full of pedestrians. "We're almost at the Great Xia Mansion." In front, Li Yunfeng reminded him. Suyu looked at the night view outside the window and was a little absent-minded. Was this the Grand Xia Manor? Even before entering the city, he could already feel the difference between him and Nanyuan. Outside the window, there was a commotion. He could even see someone riding on the galloping cloud horse from the previous assessment, galloping wildly on the road. Having already opened multiple apertures, he could vaguely feel that the yuan qi here was extremely dense. It could not be compared to when he was in Nanyuan. It could even be compared to when he was absorbing the yuan qi liquid. And on the way, some of the pedestrians gave him the feeling that they were very powerful. With the yuan qi gathered in the surroundings, Qian Jun could still sense some of it. Wan Shi gave him the feeling of heat. And in his senses, there were many people who gave him this feeling of heat. There were many people in the Wuxia realm here. And this was not the city. They were only on the road. It was not just Su Yu. At this moment, most of the students in the carriage were somewhat astonished. It was just not as obvious as Su Yu. There were many powerful cities in the 28 cities. However, they could not be compared to the Great Xia Mansion. Otherwise, the Great Xia Mansion would not be so powerful. In front of the carriage, the three Ling Yun realm experts who did not speak much earlier opened their eyes and heaved a sigh of relief. They were safe. They were outside the Great Xia Mansion and were about to enter the city. If they were still not safe in this place, the Great Xia Mansion could be removed. Unless the Myriad Clan sect wanted to be completely destroyed, they would not dare to make a move here. Sun Xia from the Nine Heavens Academy said, the Great Xia Mansion is not just a city. It is divided into 4 subsidiary cities in the east, south, west, and north, as well as the 5 main cities in the central region. The Great Xia Mansion has a permanent population of 30 million. The War Institution is usually located in the East City, while the Civilization Institution is located in the West City. After entering the city, everyone will have to separate. The Civilization Institution and War Institution are quite far apart. Someone will come to pick you up. Sun Xia continued, once we enter the city, we will go to the university first. Everyone, rest well at night and do not run around. The Great Xia Manor is a city that never sleeps. It is also very bustling outside at night. However, even if you want to familiarize yourself with the environment, it is best to wait until you have settled down before going for a walk. Su Yu was originally listening, but in the next moment, his attention shifted. Gasp! Bustling! Outside, it was as if the sky had suddenly brightened. Countless lights flickered, and he saw a city lit up in the darkness. It was incomparably huge. It was boundless. With the city walls were not considered tall, and they could not conceal the prosperity within the city. This was the interior of the human territory. Even if the city walls were forged, they would not be too tall. Moreover, the Great Xia Manor had the strength and confidence, so they did not need too tall city walls. The entire field of vision was filled with lights. They extended all the way and could not see the end. They were already very close to the city wall. There was no city gate as Su Yu had imagined. Instead, there was a road that was nearly 100 meters wide that led straight into the city. There was a checkpoint. At this moment, some soldiers were on duty. Chapter 226, Great Xia Institute of Civilization 3. Chapter 226, Chapter 71 Great Xia Institute of Civilization. Without going through it in detail, some of the vehicles displayed their entry orders and were quickly let through. Demon Beast Path, Large Vehicle Path, Small Vehicle Path, Cultivator Landing Area, Military Vehicle Path. All the roads were marked with their uses. Su Yu's bus quickly arrived at the checkpoint. Li Yunfeng opened the window and took out a piece of paper. The soldier on duty took a look and quickly saluted before letting them pass. The bus drove away. Su Yu turned his head to take a look. Behind the bus, an expert descended from the sky and quickly landed on the ground. In the cultivator landing area, this expert landed on the ground. Very quickly, this expert boarded a small car and left from another direction. Seeing Su Yu turn his head, Tao Xing also took a look and said with a smile, in the wilderness, experts are more suitable for flying or walking. Driving is inconvenient. Once we reach the city, we have to follow the rules and not fly around randomly. Su Yu smiled and did not reply. He was not surprised by this. Instead, he was shocked that there could be experts above the sky realm here at any time. One had to know that in the southern Yuan, only Xia Bing, Wu Wenhai, and Lu Wenyan were at the sky realm. And here, just as he reached the city wall, he actually saw them. The next moment, a rumbling sound was heard. Su Yu turned his head again. More than a dozen galloping cloud horses were galloping wildly, stirring up waves of dust. Although he could not see clearly under the night sky, Su Yu still saw the leader of the group fly down from the horse. He spoke a few words with the guard on duty. Yet another person soared into the sky. Perhaps even stronger. Su Yu took a deep breath. As expected, the sky of the Great Xia Manor was really much higher than that of Nan Yuan. Excluding the people in the carriage, he saw two experts soaring into the sky and above. At the same time of shock, Su Yu was also a little excited. This was what he wanted to see. The number of experts here was like the clouds. It was pressure and also motivation. In Nanyuan, one didn't need to be too strong. 10,000 stones was enough. That was the mainstay of Nanyuan. But in this place, flying was just the beginning. After entering the city, a moment later, the bus and another bus came to a stop. Students of Zhangjin College, get on that bus. On the bus, 12 students of Zhangjin College got off one after another. On that bus, there were also a few people escorting them. Su Yu wasn't familiar with them and didn't interact much with them. At this moment, he watched silently as the students from the same city said their goodbyes. After a few minutes, the bus from Zhangjin College left. The bus door closed and Sun Xia said again, "Let's go to the West City. When we arrive, the students from Nine Heavens College will follow me, the students from Dao Seeking College will follow Commanderly, and the students from Great Xia Civilization College will stay on the bus with Elder Zhao and the others." There were still 8 students left, and 6 of them were from Great Xia Civilization Academy. There was only one person from Nine Heavens Academy and one person from Dao Seeking Academy. These 2 people had chosen another academy, so it wasn't right or wrong. It was just that their individual choices were different. In those 2 academies, perhaps their achievements would be higher, because the treatment of upper-class students there was much better than that of Great Xia Civilization Academy. Hu Zongqi, who had been holding it in for an entire day, said again, Teacher Hu, when we get to the academy, will we be able to move freely?" Su Yu knew that he wanted to address him as third grandpa. Along the way, he also found out about their relationship. Hu Yuhui was Hu Zongqi's third grandpa, and Hu Yuhui was also a powerhouse at the 7th stage of Lingyun realm. On the other hand, Sun Xia was only at the 2nd stage of Lingyun realm. Therefore, Sun Xia was only a junior researcher, and the 2 of them were both intermediate researchers. In terms of status, Zhao Li and Hu Yuhui were about the same. However, the 2 of them did not seem to talk much, and neither of them spoke much to each other. Sun Xia, on the other hand, was slightly lower. If there was something on the road, either Li Yunfeng or Sun Xia would take care of it. Hearing Hu Zongqi speak, Hu Yuhui opened his eyes and looked at him. He frowned and said, "You can move freely, but those who are not familiar with the place are not allowed to run around. Your side." He did not hide much. There was no need for that. At this moment, he felt much more at ease when he arrived at the place. He shouted, "Where do you want to go? Your brother is already waiting for you at the academy. Later, go with him. After the registration is over tomorrow, we can talk about other things." Hu Zongqi was immediately a little disappointed. He muttered, "I have friends waiting for me here. We agreed to meet up tonight." Hu Yuhui ignored him. The car continued to drive. Halfway, Sun Xia and Li Yunfeng left with the 2 students. At this moment, only 6 students, Zhao Li, Hu Yuhui, and the driver were left on the car. Another half an hour passed. It was almost 9 o'clock in the evening. They had arrived. Su Yu was stunned. When he was told to get off the car, he felt that he was still in the city. However, when he got off the car, Zhao Li said, "We've arrived at the academy." Su Yu looked around. "We've arrived? Aren't we still in the city? Where's the academy? Where is it?" Seeing that he was at a loss, Zhao Li smiled and said, this is the Great Xia Civilization Academy. This is the welcoming district. When we came here just now, didn't we pass through an iron gate? That's the west gate of the academy. Su Yu was really stunned. They had just entered the institute, and after entering, they drove for more than 10 minutes before reaching the orientation zone. On this side, there was a lot of traffic, a lot of people, and a lot of cars. He had thought that they were on some commercial street, but they had reached the institute. Zhao Li continued, this is the outer area. The real teaching area of the institute is not here. We will reach it after walking a few kilometers. Tonight, everyone will rest here. Tomorrow, we will go to the institute to complete the enrollment procedures. Only then will we truly enter the Great Xia Institute of Civilization. At this moment, cars kept stopping by the roadside. There were people dragging their suitcases. It was obvious that they were freshmen. Many of them were sent here by their parents. They might be new students from the Great Xia Academy. There were also some who were brought here by buses like Su Yu and the others. They might be students from other cities. At this moment, many people were the same as Su Yu. They were also at a loss. At this moment, Zhao Li had already walked together with a few elders. After chatting for a while, another group of people arrived. It was a young man. There was more than one. Greetings, junior brother and junior sister. Those who are called by name, follow me. Line up here. Everyone, listen to the name-calling information. Those who are not able to follow, find a place to stay tonight. These young people who had just arrived were all senior students of the Institute of Civilization. At this moment, they began to take out the name-calling list in their hands. Very soon, Su Yu heard his own name. Nanyuan Middle School, Su Yu. Here. Su Yu hurriedly responded in a trance. He quickly walked in front of a girl. The girl glanced at him, smiled, and continued to call out names. A moment later, more than 10 people came over from Su Yu's side. Alright, it's you guys. The girl smiled and said, my name is Zhou Hui, your senior sister, a student of the nature conservation class. You guys come with me. Eat something and get ready to rest. Tomorrow morning, I'll come and pick you guys up. Don't run around. The Yingxin district has been very crowded these 2 days, and it's very chaotic. If you run away and miss the registration time, don't blame me for not warning you guys. As she spoke, she led the way forward. Su Yu turned his head to look at Zhao Li. Zhao Li was also looking at him. He smiled and nodded, but did not go forward to speak. When they arrived at the academy, there was plenty of time to talk to Su Yu. Let this kid familiarize himself with the environment first. Su Yu was a little flustered. At this moment, he did not see any familiar faces in the car. Even if Hu Zongqi was here, he would feel more comforted. However, there was not a single familiar face around him. Su Yu subconsciously tightened his grip on the knife in his hand. He was a little nervous. Zhou Hui, who was leading the way, laughed. Everyone, don't be nervous. It's not like I'm going to eat all of you. Once I send you to your destination, I'll complete my mission. I've just arrived and we're not familiar with each other. You'll get used to it after a few days. Also, all of you newbies, be careful at night. There's a pack of hungry wolves waiting for you at the academy. Be careful that your senior and senior brothers come to you in the middle of the night to chat about life. Don't open the door. Su Yu shuddered. Was this place so scary? He felt like he had entered a wolf's den. The world outside was very exciting, but no matter how he looked at it, it also felt very dangerous. After scaring the rookies for a while, Zhou Hui giggled. A moment later, they arrived at their destination. It was a bright building. All of you will stay on the 5th floor. Each of you will have a room. Send your luggage up. The door is open. Choose a room to stay in. Once you're done, come down and eat. Zhou Hui reminded them for a while before Su Yu and the others went upstairs to stay in silence. After choosing a room and closing the door, Su Yu finally heaved a sigh of relief. He was very nervous just now. He was really nervous. He was even more nervous than when the Myriad clan cult attacked. Unfamiliar, confused, puzzled, curious. Only when there was no one else around did he finally heave a sigh of relief. Su Yu let out a sigh of relief to calm himself down. Since he was already here, he had to overcome it immediately. Don't panic, steady, Su Yu, you can do it. Chapter 227, First Impressions of an Institution. Chapter 227, Chapter 72, First Impressions of an Institution. After adjusting his state of mind in his room, Su Yu went downstairs. In the dining room, Zhou Hui had already started eating. There were a few new students around her, and the other students were also rushing over. It wasn't just them. There were a few tables nearby. It seemed like an old student was leading a few new students as well. Come over. Zhou Hui waved at Su Yu. When Su Yu came over, Zhou Hui smiled and said, "Go get your own food. Don't tell me you don't even know how to eat." Su Yu smiled and didn't say anything. He went to the side to get some food. This restaurant was similar to a self-service restaurant. When they came back from getting food, Zhou Hui had almost finished eating. The other students also came down one after another. Zhou Hui signaled for them to eat while she watched them eat. As they ate, she said, "In the past, there were some genius students who came to the academy but didn't know anything. I thought the academy was his home." He ordered his seniors around and some even asked their seniors to help him fill the rice. Zhou Hui giggled and said, "Fortunately, you guys aren't so stupid. Otherwise, I would be rich." Everyone looked at her blankly. What did she mean? Stupid. Don't you need to be paid for your work? Zhou Hui whispered, "Everyone, look. I'm not the kind of senior who cheats people. Look around. Later, if any senior fills the rice for the new students, then the new students will be unlucky. According to the rules of the academy, there will be a reward for your efforts. If I work for you, then you have to pay a reward. 1 merit point is the starting point. If the black-hearted wants 3 to 5 merit points from you, you can't do anything about it. If you don't give it, then you have no choice. It's your fault for not having hands and feet." Zhou Hui giggled and said, "Just wait and see. Something like this will definitely happen. Some of the new students are too stupid and too arrogant. They even think that the academy is their home." Su Yu and the others' expressions changed. Was it so dark? Fortunately, they did not have the nerve to let Zhou Hui help them with the work. A short girl next to Su Yu said with some lingering fear, "Senior, you wanted to help me carry my luggage just now. Don't tell me you're going to charge me for it." "Of course." Zhou Hui said matter-of-factly, "I think they can all carry it. You're carrying your luggage and swaying. Can't I help you?" "Don't worry, Senior, I'm not a dark person. I'll help you send it to your room with 1 merit point." The short girl looked relieved. She had carried it up herself. At that time, she was embarrassed to trouble senior sister, but now it seemed that she had saved some merit points. To the students, 1 merit point was not a small amount. Even if there were rich families, merit points were not spent like this. It was equivalent to carrying a luggage worth tens of thousands of dollars. Who could stand this? Su Yu did not care about this and said softly, "Senior sister Zhou, is there a reward for welcoming a senior student?" "Yes, 1 trip, 1 merit point." Zhou Hui giggled and said, "It's not a small amount. This is something that many people cannot snatch. Only the students of our recuperation class have the chance to snatch it. It's easy and safe. The time is still short. 1 merit point is not so easy to earn normally." As she said that, Zhou Hui looked at the few of them and smiled. Are there any upper-class students among you? The short girl from before carefully raised her hand and said, I am. Zhou Hui's eyes lit up. You are upper class? Then there's a reward of 100 merit points for entering the school. The short girl saw that her eyes were shining and was a little afraid. However, she still nodded and said, yes, I heard that there's a reward of 100 points. Junior sister. Zhou Hui's eyes were bright as she said, have you considered lending? 100 points. If you lend it out for 3 months, I'll return 110 points to you. Anyway, once you enter the school, you won't be able to use it. It's too much of a waste to keep it with you. You can lend it to me, and I'll help you release it. After 3 months, I'll give you 110 points. You'll earn 10 merit points. Su Yu and the others were dumbstruck. The people in the city were too good at playing. Even the students from the other cities were dumbstruck at this time. Civilization University really knew how to play. The short girl was so scared that she was about to cry. She hurriedly said, I can't. I still need to exchange for some original cultivation techniques that I need to use. Zhou Hui smiled and said, you don't know how to scheme at all. Forget it, I won't trick you. Anyway, you can consider lending it to me if you can't spend it all. I'll leave my contact number with you later. After saying that, she looked at the others on the table and said with a smile, the same goes for all of you. You can consider it. Of course, some of you may also be upper-class students, but the information doesn't show it, so I can't be bothered to ask. Don't worry, no one dares to cheat you of your merit points. This is a civilized academy, so the interest is definitely there. Who knows how many merit points the academy lacks? It's just a temporary turnover, and it will be returned to you soon. Su Yu could not help but ask, senior sister, is it so hard to earn merit points in the academy? Of course. Zhou Hui said helplessly, we're not fighters, and our physical strength isn't strong either, so we can't accept some missions. There are also many old people who haven't graduated from the academy. Some translation work, some assistance work, it's simply not our place to accept them. They were all snatched up in an instant. Zhou Hui sighed and said, I've been in the academy for 6 years and have entered a state of recuperation. However, even at this stage, there aren't many good missions that I can take on. Otherwise, why would I come to pick up you freshmen? Now, I need merit points to read the article of will, merit points to attend classes, and merit points to eat and sleep. Zhou Hui said dejectedly, I can't even live on. Hearing her say it so miserably, everyone felt a sense of sadness. It was too miserable. Su Yu also said with some worry, then there's no way to earn merit points. There is. Chapter 228, First Impressions of the Academy 2. Chapter 228, Chapter 72, First Impressions of the Academy 2. Zhou Hui said gloomily, didn't I say it before? There are many missions, such as assisting alchemists in pill concocting, assisting beast tamers in raising demonic beasts, and assisting divine literature masters in their work. All of them will receive merit points. Those who are strong and confident will challenge the Academy's top 100 ranking and enter the top 100 ranking. Every month, they will receive merit points as compensation. The ranking of the top 100? Su Yu was slightly stunned. Beside him, the short girl hurriedly said, I know, senior sister. Is it the ranking for the cultivation stage? It can be considered as that. Zhou Hui smiled and said, that thing can only be listed on the ranking for the cultivation stage, and it has to be one of the strong ones. After the age of 30, it will not be listed on the ranking. The reason why the graduates are not listed is to give rewards to other students. The short girl said again, senior sister, I've heard my aunt say this before, but I'm prepared to walk the path of an alchemist. My strength is definitely not strong, so how can I get on the list? That's simple. Zhou Hui smiled and said, the top 100 list is mainly for combat sections. Actually, alchemists, talisman masters, and military masters all have their own lists. You can also enter these lists, but you're not as famous as the top 100 list. After saying that, she looked at the envious new students on the table. Zhou Hui chuckled and said, "Don't even think about it. Don't even think about how many people there are in the civilized academy. There are only so many people who graduate every year. Under the age of 30, there are at least over 1,000 people who are unable to graduate in a year. The others have left the academy. If we count it up, with the accumulation of more than 10 years, there are over 10,000 students. There were over 10,000 students under the age of 30. Many of them could not stand it and had already left the university. Otherwise, there would be even more people." Zhou Hui smiled and said, "There isn't one nurturing class. There are all kinds of major departments. If we count it up, there are around 5,000 nurturing students under the age of 30 in the university. Among them, 100 are on the list. It's better for you new students to forget about it. There's so much recuperation." On the table, a male student said in surprise, "Isn't that too much? This is still considered a lot." Zhou Hui said disapprovingly, "There's a lot of recuperation. This doesn't even count as students over the age of 30. Having a willpower of 50% at full capacity was recuperation. It would be enough for the new students to spend a year or two. However, when it came to recuperation, they would stay for a long time. The academy still has a large number of 70 to 80-year-old recuperation students." Zhou Hui shook her head and sighed. "It's too difficult to fly. There were 62 graduates in the academy last year, 16 of them were under the age of 30, and the rest were over the age of 30. That's still considered good. Most of them will never be able to fly in their entire lives." Everyone instantly fell silent. Zhou Hui quickly smiled and said, "Don't worry. If it really doesn't work out, we can just change careers. Take me for example. If I can't fly at the age of 30, I'll leave the academy and find my own way out. We have strong willpower and have switched to the warrior path. Qianjun and Wanshi are still very fast. When we reach Wanshi, we can find a decent job anywhere." A student couldn't help but ask, "Senior sister, how old are you?" Zhou Hui's gaze was dangerous as she said, "It's very dangerous to ask this question, do you understand?" After saying that, she returned to her smile and said, "I'm still all right. I've been in the academy for 6 years and I'm 24 this year. It's fine to ask me. If you ask those senior sisters who have stayed in the academy for decades, you'll all be unlucky." The students all laughed, and the atmosphere eased up a lot. Everyone had been very nervous before, but Zhou Hui seemed to be very talkative. She didn't have the cold arrogance of the other seniors, so they could continue chatting. Su Yu and the others also saw that the surrounding tables were frighteningly quiet. Some seniors ate by themselves and didn't pay any attention to the new students. Obviously, this was just a mission. They were only responsible for leading the way, and didn't care about anything else. If they wanted to talk, they would talk. If they didn't want to talk, they didn't care about the new students at all. What Su Yu cared about the most was the merit points. At this moment, he asked again, "Senior, I heard that we also need merit points in class. Is it very expensive?" "Of course." Zhou Hui said, "Not all of them. Some basic subjects do not need merit points. But when it comes to professional knowledge, especially the writing of the will, then the merit points will be scary." Zhou Hui said with a pained expression, "For example, the teaching assistants classes, writing the writing of the will on the spot, each class will require at least 5 merit points. Beginner researchers, that's 10 merit points. Intermediate and advanced researchers, you can't afford them at all. In fact, they rarely give lessons to freshmen. Those who cultivate their character have to see if they are geniuses or not. Otherwise, they wouldn't waste their time teaching us. You guys go to the library and the library pavilion. They all need merit points. Suyu said in surprise, the library and the library pavilion are different? Of course they are different. The library is all ordinary books, and the library pavilion is the essence. They are all the original books of the 10,000 races, or the will writings written by some human experts. Some of them may be overdone, but they are much more precious than ordinary books. Zhou Hui sighed. The library, classes, cultivation, pills, weapons, talismans, all of these require merit points, not to mention secret realms. There are a few secret realms open to the academy, and one merit point is terrifying. I've been here for 6 years, and I've only been there once. Zhou Hui gritted her teeth and said, just like that, it took me several years of savings to return to before I entered the academy. Otherwise, I wouldn't have bothered to pick up new students like you. Everyone felt sad and miserable. It was as if there were no merit points here. It was simply impossible to survive. It was too terrifying. A student said in a low voice, fortunately, when I came, my father gave me 30 merit points. As soon as these words were said, Zhou Hui instantly looked at that person and her eyes lit up. Classmate, how about lending me? Chapter 229, First Impression of the Academy 3. Chapter 229, Chapter 72, First Impression of the Academy. Everyone was speechless. This senior was really unscrupulous, borrowing from whoever she wanted. Seeing that the person was silent, Zhou Hui sighed, forget it, stingy person. It's just 30 merit points. It's useless. In a few months, you'll realize that this amount of merit points is too little. Zhou Hui shook her head and said, and it's not yours. The merit level hasn't increased, so there are some things that you can't exchange for. Even if you have merit points, it's useless. Just take the qualification to enter the secret realm as an example. Even if you have merit points, you might not be able to enter. Even if it's open, the most ordinary ones need to accumulate more than 30 achievement points to enter. Zhou Hui shook her head and said, those high-level mystic realms need to accumulate more than 100 achievement points. Think about it, how can you accumulate more than 100 achievement points without flying? Suyu hurriedly calculated how many achievement points he had accumulated. In the language of myriad clans, he only received 18 achievement points. The last time he had done a mission, he had received 10 merit points. He had received a total of 40 points for first place in the assessment, but 20 of them were additional rewards, not counted as merit points. This was 48 merit points, and there was also a reward this time. If it was more than 40 points, then it would be close to 90 merit points. Suyu secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he had accumulated more. Even if he had accumulated 100 merit points, he was about to reach the target. The academy was actually giving students from ordinary families an opportunity to do so. Everyone needed to accumulate merit points. The opportunity to enter the mystic realm was actually the same. Even if the big families did not lack merit points, he could not enter the mystic realm if he did not accumulate enough merit points. If he had accumulated enough merit points, the students from ordinary families would be able to earn merit points to enter the mystic realm. This rule actually restricts the members of those big families. Suyu somewhat understood. In the academy, it was mainly dependent on himself. The family background was useful, but it might not be as big as he imagined, weakening the influence of the big families. Zhou Hui did not have the mood to care about what Suyu was thinking. She continued, it's too early to tell you all this now. You'll all know about it in a while. From the moment you entered the academy, your main task was to grasp the basic knowledge, choose the subjects, and choose the teachers. Of course, this is the treatment of a genius. Zhou Hui shrugged and said, if you're not a genius, then just obediently attend a large class. If you want to start a small class, then you have to have merit points. After saying that, she looked at the short girl and said with a smile, Lu Ku, you're a high-class student. There will definitely be a researcher to take you in. Do you have a goal now? If not, how about I recommend one to you? The short girl, Lu Ku, said timidly, there's no need, senior sister. I already have a teacher. What a pity. Zhou Hui had a regretful look on her face. I'll introduce you to a teacher. If it succeeds, I can even get some merit points. What a pity. After saying that, she looked at the few people around her, she smiled and said, do you still have any high-class ones? Middle class and above were also fine. After all, there were only a few high-class ones. There was a high chance of finding a teaching assistant to be a teacher. I'll introduce you to the most suitable teacher for you. Both parties have found each other, so I'll also get some benefits. On the right side of Su Yu, a boy raised his hand and said, Senior, can I find a teacher who's suitable for me to take the middle school examination? There's hope. Zhou Hui nodded and said, let's talk alone later. There aren't many new students this year, but it's said that there will be a reduction of 500 places. In fact, it's a mess of people being stuffed in. Together with a group of people going to a small city to take the examination, the number of people who will really enter the school will be about the same as in previous years. There will be around 2,000 people. The lower class people are the majority. There are at least 1,200 people, and the middle class people are around 500 to 600. The rest are probably the upper class people. As she said that, Zhou Hui continued, this year, the academy has rules, and they have requirements for researchers. There might be more than 100 researchers who want to accept students, and a few hundred people. The middle-class people actually have a chance. Su Yu waited for her to finish speaking before he continued, Senior sister, if no one accepts new students this year, will there be an opportunity in the future? There will be. Zhou Hui giggled and said, Senior, I will also give it a try this year to see if there's a chance to find a teacher. However, teachers don't like to accept older students. Zhou Hui began to sigh again, they're saying that we're old foxes and that our temperaments have been worn down. Why don't they think about what we can do? Back then, no one accepted us when we entered the school, so we have to slowly grind it out. If we weren't old foxes, we wouldn't have been able to cultivate to this stage. Seriously, we can only take things one step at a time. After saying that, he looked at Su Yu and said, Su Yu, you're from Nanyuan. I heard that this year, there seems to be an upper-class student from Nanyuan. After saying that, Zhou Hui blinked her eyes. What was the name of that upper-class student from Nanyuan? As senior students, they rarely cared about this. The freshmen might still care a little about each other, but who among the senior students cared about this? No matter how powerful he was, it had nothing to do with me. The other freshmen weren't sure either. However, Lu Ku suddenly glanced at Su Yu with some curiosity. Su Yu. Was it him? Upper-class students usually only cared about upper-class students. Those who were weaker than them, unless they were very close, who would care? Lu Ku was an upper-class student. Naturally, he also cared about the other upper-class students this year. Although there wasn't a complete list, Nan Yuan was the only one. She seemed to have heard of him. His name was. What was his name? Su Yu. Zhou Hui's expression also changed a little. Nan Yuan and the others didn't seem to have arrived yet. Not only Nan Yuan, the ordinary students from the other cities didn't seem to have arrived yet. Su Yu seemed to be the only copy from Nanyuan. That superior class was this kid? Is it him? Chapter 230, First Impression of the University 4. Chapter 230, Chapter 72, First Impression of the University 4. Zhou Hui's eyes lit up. Su Yu did not say anything, and she did not expose him either. However, she was still a little more enthusiastic. She smiled and said, Student Su Yu, remember senior sister's contact number later. If you need anything, contact me. For example, looking for a teacher, reading information, understanding the list of geniuses of the university, the list of the top 100. Look for me anytime. It's cheap. You don't have to use merit points. You can even settle it in cash. The same goes for all of you. After Zhou Hui said that, she suddenly took out some books from her bag and said with a smile, when you come to the academy, you should actually buy a Great Xia Civilized Academy General Manual. It's cheap and affordable. Lu Ke's interest was piqued and he hurriedly said, Senior sister, how much is a book? It's not expensive, it's 500 yuan a book. Zhou Hui smiled and said, this is the latest version, this will be updated at any time. The old version isn't worth much. If the new version of the Black-Hearted Senior sells you 1 merit point, you will have to buy it even if you are itching for it, right? Many people nodded. This was true. Especially the top 100 ranking. Everyone was actually very curious. Zhou Hui flipped to a page, she casually pointed at the page and said, this is the Academy's strongest teaching assistant chapter. Look, Xia Yuan, who is ranked first. Perhaps some people know, but who is ranked second and who is ranked third? Are you interested? Also, this is the latest student ranking. Who is the strongest student under the age of 30? This is the Academy's junior researcher ranking list. Who is the strongest among the junior researchers? This is. Zhou Hui's words moved everyone. In the next moment, the students were in high spirits as they took out their money to buy something. Su Yu was also moved. He was also very curious about this. He knew even less than the others. At this moment, even though he felt a little pained, he still took out 500 onping coins to buy a book. About 10 students each had a book. Zhou Hui held the money and her face was beaming. The cost of this thing was 30 yuan per book. All of a sudden, it was more than 10 times the profit. Unfortunately, she did not bring many students. And her heart was not black enough. Just as she said, she was kind-hearted. On the other side, a new student suddenly exclaimed, 3 merit points for a book, isn't that too expensive? Take it or leave it. On the other side, an old male student said indifferently, this thing is just that expensive. It involves the internal information of the Institute of Civilization. Do you think it's that simple? I also took a risk to bring it out. At this moment, at the surrounding tables, some old students were secretly speechless. F***ck, this was too dark. Some of them only accepted cash, while others only accepted 1 merit point. This guy was too dark, asking for 3 merit points all of a sudden. He was simply a black man. Of course, no one exposed him. Even though this fellow was black-hearted and seemed to be able to earn quite a bit, but, it wasn't as if there weren't any new students who would come looking for him to settle the score with him in a few years. Regardless of how much he earned, he had to look at the future first. Zhou Hui was also envious, but she didn't mind it too much. If she really met some genius students who were stingy, they would become stronger in a few years. For the sake of these few merit points, they would casually make things difficult for her. Hee, just wait for your bad luck. She did not mind, but Su Yu and the others suddenly looked at her gratefully. It seemed like they had made a huge profit. If they bought a book with 3 merit points, it would be worth tens of thousands. They could not even buy it for 50,000 to 60,000. They only wanted 500 yuan. If there was no comparison, there would be no harm. Previously, they had thought that it was expensive, but now they suddenly felt that it was worth it. The few of them carefully hid the book so that no one would know that they had bought it cheaply. Zhou Hui chuckled to herself. This was good as well. Among this group of people, there were at least 2 upper-class students. It would be best if they did not have any grievances. Perhaps they could even leave a good impression on them. They had also earned money and gained some impression points. Regardless of whether these people would remember them in the future, they had more or less left some favors behind. As for the old student next door, he probably did not care about these new students either. He was taking advantage of each and every one of them. Perhaps in a few years, the other party would leave and he would not be able to leave. If he did not leave, what was the point of staying in the academy? You guys go back and take your time. I'll pick you up tomorrow and send you to your dormitories. Right, upper-class students can stay in the nature garden. I advise you to stay there if you have the chance. Otherwise. Those ordinary dormitories will annoy you to death. Zhou Hui gritted her teeth and said, 8 people in a room. You're reading, others are practicing martial arts, you're practicing martial arts, others are taking a bath, you're taking a bath, and others are studying, you'll go crazy. Su Yu's expression changed slightly. Was this a scam? 8 people in a room. One had to know that this was cultivation, not daily residence. The most taboo thing about cultivation was to be disturbed by others. At this moment, Su Yu suddenly felt a little depressed. Could it be that I'm going to live in the nature garden? 50,000. I don't have this much even with all my belongings. Actually, Zhou Hui was secretly observing him. When she saw this, she smiled in her heart. As expected, this was probably that upper-class student, Nan Yuan. Not bad. This time, she had actually accepted 2 upper-class students. Although it was only to accept a new student, it was not necessarily without benefits if the exchange was good. Zhou Hui was secretly pleased in her heart. Previously, it was still beneficial to act coquettishly with the researcher who assigned tasks to her. The list assigned to her was not bad. P.S. Everyone, recommend and vote for it. The monthly ticket can be kept for a few days. It will be on the shelves at noon on March 20th. It should be like this. There are still 8 days left. Eagle will try his best to get the free chapters to around 500,000 words. Now, it is 400,000 words. Eagle is simply a model in the industry. Everyone, please leave some monthly passes for me. Chapter 231, Women are the roadblocks. Chapter 231, Chapter 73, Women are the roadblocks. After chatting with Zhou Hui for a while, Su Yu and the other rookies had a general understanding of the situation in the academy. Although it was just some basic information, it also made the students less anxious. As for the rumors of the academy's fight, Zhou Hui raised her voice. It had nothing to do with them. In other words, everyone had no right to get involved. Outsiders said that the academy's struggles were cruel. They were aimed at the strong, aimed at geniuses. Mediocrity did not deserve it. When she said this, Su Yu remembered that Zhou Hui was actually a little envious. Struggles? If it really comes down to me, I'll laugh myself to death. At that moment, Zhou Hui seemed to really be envious. Being able to be contended by others meant that you were a genius, a monster, and a strong person. Your value was very high. You don't have that value. No one in the academy is willing to pay attention to you. Who would be willing to waste time for a mediocrity? A genius, a monster, and a strong person. These people would not be so bored as to waste time with mediocrity. Even if they suppressed you, they would despise you for not being qualified. Therefore, according to Zhou Hui's words, if you really feel the aura of a struggle in the academy, congratulations, you have become an important figure in the academy. That also represented power, strength, merit, and the right to speak. Zhou Hui's words made Su Yu suddenly come to a realization. He felt as if he had been enlightened. Previously, he had been a little too narrow-minded. Although he had come to the Great Xia Civilization Academy, in reality, Su Yu was still a little dissatisfied with the academy's struggle. He felt that it should not be like this, especially when it made the new students feel that kind of oppression. However, now that Zhou Hui said this, he understood that it wasn't the institute that had brought the struggle to the students, but he was too outstanding. Outstanding people, regardless of whether they were students or not, would fall into it. For things like merit points, cultivation techniques, and resources, the geniuses wanted a lot. The strong also wanted a lot. If they wanted too much, if they didn't fight with others, would it be like a pie falling from the sky? If they were like Zhou Hui and the others, after a few years, who would think that they wanted a few hundred merit points? However, would Suyu be satisfied with such a small amount of merit points? One had to know that during this period of time, Suyu had already used 70 to 80 merit points. After returning to his room, Suyu quietly thought for a while and was suddenly enlightened. A faint smile appeared on his face. There were some things that could be considered from a different point of view, and the result would be different. Letting out a light breath, Suyu didn't think about this anymore. He picked up the general manual of the Great Xia Civilization Academy and started to read it. Academy Chapter. The academy was divided into 8 main regions. The teaching area, the business area, the residential area, the welcoming area, the secret realm area, the preaching area, the cultivation pavilion, and the retirement area. The welcoming area was where Suyu was currently staying. It was in charge of welcoming the new students, and it was in charge of the parents visiting and staying. In the preaching district, there were mainly some experts who might preach in public. If one was lucky, they might be able to watch the experts right there while on the spot, or explain some other private knowledge. It was all free. The Heart Cultivation Pavilion was where the core of the academy was located. The retirement district was in the true sense of retirement. Some of the older students of the academy lived there and formed an extremely large system. As for the other regions, one could understand the meaning from their names. The Great Xia Civilization Academy was huge. From the introduction, it wasn't any smaller than the southern Yuan main city. The population was also huge. There were close to 20,000 students below the age of 30. These were the new generation of students in the academy. 10 years wasn't a long time to cultivate, so those below the age of 30 had great potential. And there were close to 10,000 students over the age of 30 and between the ages of 30 and 50. There were also close to 20,000 students over the age of 50. In fact, those over the age of 50 represented that their potential was almost exhausted, and it was almost impossible for them to manifest it again. Lu Wenyan manifesting was a special case, or rather, it was rare for a few people to have such an opportunity. In total, there were close to 50,000 students in the academy. As for those over 30 years old, many of them had already gotten married and had children. In addition to their family members, there were staff members, professors, and researchers. The entire academy had close to 100,000 people. The scale was extremely huge. In the business district, there were many family members of the academy's students, professors, and researchers who had opened shops. These people were already inseparable from the academy. 100,000 people. Looking at this number, Suyu was shocked. A school had a population of 100,000. One had to know that although the Nanyuan had a population of 1 million, a large portion of them lived outside the city. Including the villages, towns, and people who had left the Nanyuan, it was a population of 1 million. Only around 300,000 people lived in the main city. And the Great Xia Civilization Institute, only the institute, not the city, there are actually 100,000 people. This is actually a small town. Suyu briefly looked at the school chapter, and quickly turned to the character chapter. The House of Characters. Prefect, All Saints. The 6th Governor of the Great Xia Institute of Civilization. Strength, unknown. According to rumors, 50 years ago when the prefect took office, the peak of the Mountain Sea realm, when the prefect was 48 years old. There wasn't much information about Wan Tiansheng. Only then did Suyu know that Wan Tiansheng was actually 98, almost 100 years old. And 50 years ago, he was already at the peak of the Shanhai realm. What about now? No one knew. Wan Tiansheng had stayed in the academy for 50 years and didn't make any moves. No one knew how strong he was, and even if they knew, it wasn't something that the students could understand. When one reached the Shanhai realm, the information about the human race was vague, and the enemy couldn't make heads or tails of it. That's right. Without that strength, I wouldn't have been able to become the principal 50 years ago. Chapter 232, Women were all obstacles in the way. Chapter 232, Chapter 73 Women were all obstacles in the way. Su Yu was not too surprised that Wan Tianxing could become the head of the academy 50 years ago. He could even be considered to have turned the tide. Without strength, it was impossible. The other party might have already reached the peak. As for the legendary invincible realm, Su Yu did not dare to think about it. The Character Chapter's Deputy Head Chapter. Great Xia Institute of Civilization, 3 Deputy Prefects. First Deputy Prefect, Zhou Mingren, Peak of Shanhai Realm. Second Deputy Prefect, Xia Chongqing, Mountain and Sea Realm Peak. Third Deputy Prefect, Su Ziming, Peak of Shanhai Realm. 3 Deputy Prefects. Introduction is not much, the strength also depends on guesses, only a few more introduced probably is Summer Evergreen, Summer Family, Summer of the Great Xia Mansion. The next advanced researchers were not all listed. They only gave a brief introduction of a few well-known advanced researchers. Su Yu saw a familiar name. Advanced Researcher, Hong Tan. He understood that this was Bai Feng's teacher, Lu Wenyan's junior brother. Hong Tan, Advanced Researcher of the Academy's Path of God Literature, 8th level of the Shanhai Realm, proficient in the Path of God Literature Fusion, Deputy Dean of the Academy of God Literature. The Dean was the first Deputy Dean, Zhou Mingren. This Su Yu had seen the introduction before. The School of Divine Literature was the base camp of the Divine Literature Department. However, the introduction also said that Hong Tan didn't really care about anything. All these years, he had only accepted Bai Feng as a student, and he hadn't shown his face for a long time. He continued reading and saw another person. Senior Researcher, Wu Yuehua. Wu Yuehua, Senior Researcher of the Divine Alchemy Path, 8th level of the Shanhai Realm, good at pill refining. The introduction was very simple, but there was an extra sentence at the end, the great aunt of the genius assistant teacher Wu Qi. Wu Qi. Su Yu knew this person. Wu Lan's sister, the genius of the academy. Previously, many people compared Wu Qi and Bai Feng. The meaning was very clear, Bai Feng could not compare to Wu Qi. Wu family. Su Yu gently exhaled. No wonder Wu Lan was so confident. She actually had a great aunt at the 8th level of the Shanhai Realm. It would be strange if she was not confident. If it was Su Yu who had such a backing, he would also be confident. On the side of the senior researcher, Su Yu glanced over and flipped to the side of the intermediate researcher. Zhao Li, intermediate researcher in the art of weapon forging, proficient in weapon forging, 7th level of the Lingyun realm, master of weapon forging, weird personality. Weird? Su Yu raised his eyebrows. He didn't really feel it. However, Zhao Li was ranked very high among the intermediate researchers. It was actually a little out of Su Yu's expectations that he was ranked in the top 3. He thought that the person was just bragging, but it turned out that he was really amazing. He flipped through the pages but didn't see Hu Youhui's introduction. This meant that, this researcher who wasn't the best among the intermediate researchers. He was at the 7th level of the Lingyun realm after all, yet he didn't even introduce him. Su Yu didn't pay much attention to the junior researcher. Soon, the page turned to the assistant researcher page. Xia Yuan, assistant researcher, 9th level of the Sky Realm, a member of the Xia family, number 1 on the top 100 ranking list after graduation, number 1 teaching assistant in the academy. Hu Wensheng, assistant researcher, 9th level of the Sky Realm, number 2 on the top 100 ranking list after graduation, number 2 teaching assistant in the academy. Wu Qi, soaring 8th Dan. Bai Feng, soaring 7th Dan. Su Yu flipped through the pages. Bai Feng was not ranked too high among the teaching assistants, he was ranked 11th. However, there were a few people in front of him, they were all very old, they were all experts of soaring 9th Dan. According to Bai Feng's own words, under the age of 30, he should be in the top 5. Xia Yuan, Hu Wensheng, Wu Qi. These few people were better than him, and the rest were not as good as him. Looks like he's really quite powerful. After reading the information, Suyu understood that Bai Feng was really not bad at the 7th level of the sky. He was too young, and there were not many people under the age of 30 who could reach the sky. He also saw Bai Feng's old rival, Lu Hong's name. He was also at level 7. He was ranked 14th, just slightly less than Bai Feng. Previously, researcher Huang had told him that Lu Hong was still at level 6, so he did not have to worry too much. The other party was no match for Bai Feng. Now that he saw that Lu Hong had also reached level 7, Suyu was somewhat moved. It seemed that these geniuses had improved very quickly. Lu Hong was indeed a genius. If he did not count, Bai Feng would not count either. Other than these researchers, the most famous of the remaining ungraduated students was the ranking of the top 100. The ranking of the top 100 didn't count soaring, nor did it count students over the age of 30. The number 1 was called Zhan Hai. In the recuperation stage, 99% of one's willpower was accumulated. At the age of 26, one walked the path of divine runes and grasped 3 divine runes, all of which were extremely powerful. The exact divine runes were unknown, and their characteristics were unknown. It wasn't just the nurturing stage, but the path of a fighter was also very powerful. He was a fighter at the 9th level of the 10,000 stones realm. According to the information, Zhan Hai probably wanted his physical body to soar into the sky first, then his willpower to soar into the sky and superimpose his body. Of course, there wasn't much hope. In another 1 or 2 years, if he still didn't soar into the sky, then there would be no hope of catching up to Bai Feng's group of evildoers. You just soared into the sky, and they were already Ling Yun. Superimposing your body was useless. Moreover, they were also evildoers, and they also had things that they were good at. Zhan Hai. Suyu only looked at those researchers. However, Suyu actually did not know Zhan Hai, and he did not wish to know him. He only wanted to know, what was the reward for the top 100 rankers. Very quickly, Suyu saw what he wanted to see. Top 100 rankers, record 100 students under the age of 30. Those who have accumulated more than 100 merit points can challenge the top 100 rankers. If you challenge once, you will be paid 10 merit points. If you fail, the merit points will belong to the students being challenged. If you succeed, the merit points will belong to you. Chapter 233, Women were all the obstacles in the way. Chapter 233, Chapter 73. Women were all the obstacles in the way. Top 10, 91-100, 3 contribution points per month. 81-90, 4 points per month. 21-30, 10 points per month. 11-20, 15 points per month. For -10, 20 contribution points per month, 10,000 stone level. Top 3, 30 merit points per month, 10,000 stone realm original, top 3 for 6 months in a row, 1 chance to enter the mystic realm. Top 3 for 6 months in a row, 1 drop of demonic god blood essence. Suyu was dumbfounded. The rewards were too generous. Top 3, 30 merit points per month, and 1 10,000 stone realm original, which was available every month. One had to know that just the 1000 June realm book alone would cost more than 30 merit points on the Southern Yuan side. How many merit points would a 10,000 stone realm book cost? Just this alone would give more than 100 merit points in a month. If he could stay in the top 3 for half a year, then he would have another chance to enter the mystic realm, not to mention the first place, the blood essence of God and devil. Suyu shook his head. It has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with me. My goal is to enter the top 100 as soon as possible. I can get 3 more merit points in a month. It didn't seem like much, but he was rewarded once a month. After a year, 36 merit points wasn't a small amount. How could a student in the recuperation stage get so many merit points in one go? Su Yu had been lucky to get them before. If he hadn't cooperated with the Dragon Martial Guards and City Guards, he would only get 3 merit points if he killed 1,000 tons of weight alone. It was equivalent to killing 1,000 tons of weight every month, and he would only get 3 merit points. Killing 1,000 tons of weight for a student at the recuperation stage was really not that simple. In the Great Xia manner, one might not even have this chance. Unless one left the city and went to the wilderness to find the tens of thousands of races to kill. The key was that if one left the city, the one who died might be you. Work hard to enter the top 100. Su Yu's gaze landed on the last person on the top 100 list, Lin Qing. It's you. Lin Qing, ranked 100th on the top 100 list, had been in school for 5 years, was at the peak of recuperation, and was a fighter at the 7th layer of the Tao of Qianjun. Yes, even the last person was so strong. The top 100 were almost all at the peak of recuperation. Some of them were not, but their physical bodies had reached the 10,000 stone realm, and they were all very terrifying. This top 100 list could actually be converted into the 10,000 stone list of Zhangjin College. Those who did not reach the 10,000 stone realm or did not possess the combat strength of the 10,000 stone realm would not be able to make it onto the list. 10,000 stone combat strength. Su Yu took a deep breath. Of course, he didn't have it now. Even if he swallowed the blood essence and unleashed the explosive strength of the 1,000 June 7th stage, coupled with the divine inscriptions, he would at most be able to fight against the 1,000 June 9th stage. However, once he encountered 10,000 stones, Su Yu had seen the explosive strength of 10,000 stones previously. A group of 1,000 June experts surrounded and killed the other party. In the end, they suffered heavy losses. If they were careless for even a moment, the other party might be able to turn the tables. At that time, Su Yu had interfered with the other party for a moment, and his head was about to explode. At that time, the other party was still a simple fighter. One had to know that the students of the Institute of Civilization had very strong willpower. Lin Qing, who was ranked 100th, was at the peak of recuperation. Su Yu's interference with the divine runes might lose its effect, and he might even suffer a backlash. As such, he had no hope of fighting against the other party. 100th place. I'm still a little lacking. Wait until my physical body is thousands of tons, my willpower is recuperating, and my 2 divine runes are a little stronger. Only then will I have the hope of challenging them. Su Yu took a deep breath, clenched his fists, and cheered himself on. It was too difficult for people who lacked money. As for that Lin Qing being a woman. So what if she was a woman? He couldn't be bothered with that. Girls didn't give him any merit points. His teacher was right. Women were all obstacles in the path of cultivation. Look, the one blocking him now was this Lin Qing. At the same time. Residential area, teaching assistant district. In a small villa. Wu Lan looked at a girl beside her and said with high morale, Sister Qing, I will challenge you very soon. Wait for me. Lin Qing smiled very intelligently and looked very gentle. She smiled lightly and said, Lan Lan, you should accumulate 100 merit points first. When you accumulate 100 merit points, I might already be in the top 50. Wu Lan clenched her fists and said unwillingly, it'll be done soon. Besides, I'm also cultivating my character. I'll probably reach the peak of cultivating my character in a while. By then, I'll be able to take on many missions. After saying that, her blood began to boil. Sister Qing, I've thought it through. After I sign up, I'll go out with the military to carry out missions. Lin Qing looked at her in surprise. Then, with some lingering fear, she said, nonsense. You're going to follow the army? Of course. Wu Lan's face was full of excitement as she said, only then will I be able to accumulate merit points quickly. I know a guy who's very weak. His willpower is only 20%. In the end, he went out with the wind-seizing haul and even killed 1,000 stones. He even accumulated an additional 10 merit points, which is even higher than mine. Lin Qing looked at her and only said after a long while, I will tell my teacher. Her teacher was none other than Wuxia, the 20-year-old demon who soared into the sky. After soaring into the sky, he became an assistant teacher and took in Lin Qing 5 years ago. Now that Lin Qing had made it into the top 100, not to mention an assistant teacher, even an ordinary student of a middle-level researcher might not be able to nurture a student of the top 100. Wu Lan said disapprovingly, that fellow can carry out missions, so why can't I? I know, you all think that I don't know anything, so how can I not know anything? Life and death training is also the best way to strengthen oneself. Isn't it just that you're afraid that I'll die in the middle of a mission? If I really die, that's also fate. If my sister didn't carry out a mission back then, she wouldn't have been able to take flight so early. Lin Qing advised, Lan, you've just entered the academy and your physical body hasn't even entered Qianjun yet. If you go on the mission now, it's simply fooling around and sending yourself to your death. Then he's not Qianjun either. Who are you talking about? Su Yu. Wu Lan said angrily, that fellow from Nanyuan, the student that assistant instructor by phone wants to take in. Su Yu. Lin Qing muttered, very quickly, he said, it's different. Lan, a student from a small city. In order to have a bright future and a way out, you don't even have to risk your life. Your starting point is high, but this is also your own capital. Why do you have to play up your weaknesses and avoid your strengths? Why do you have to compete with him on this? Wu Lan frowned and said, I don't care. In any case, I have to keep an eye on him. The last time he took the first place, I actually came in second. His smile is really arrogant. I have to regain my face. I have to regain the face that I lost. Seeing this, Lin Qing did not say anything else. However, he had already made up his mind. Once his teacher came out of seclusion, he would immediately inform his teacher. He could not let Wu Lan cause trouble. The Wu clan's motto was not to soar into the sky and not to involve in any dangerous missions. Everything would be discussed when it came to soaring into the sky. If something happened to Wu Lan while she was on a mission, that would be a huge problem. While she was still thinking about it, Wu Lan said, my sister hasn't come out of seclusion yet. I'll go back first. That fellow should be here as well. He must be cultivating secretly. I have to go back and cultivate too. Lin Qing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Did he still need to secretly cultivate when he was cultivating? Wu Lan, on the other hand, was going up against Su Yu. Don't be in such a hurry, Lan. If you really want to see him feel uncomfortable, I'll help you take care of him. I don't want to. Wu Lan said angrily, I want a fair competition. Defeat him. Then I'll laugh wildly in front of him, making him angry and angry. In the future, I don't want the merit points in the family anymore. I want to accumulate them myself. I want to become stronger and defeat him myself. Lin Qing felt helpless and could only say that he was childish. He didn't want the merit points in his family anymore. Could this be his way of proving himself? Wu Lan was still too young, too impulsive, and too childish. Compared to her teacher, the gap between them was huge. Not to mention talent, her personality was much worse. When Wuqi entered the school, she was often provoked by others. Being born into the Wu family was their capital, so there was no need to make things difficult for her because of what outsiders said. If Wu Qi was like Wu Lan, she wouldn't have made it to where she is today and become one of the top genius teaching assistants in the academy. Lin Qing didn't try to persuade her, so she had no way to do so. She could only wait for her teacher to come out of seclusion. This time, when her teacher comes out of seclusion, perhaps, he will be able to soar to the 9th level. Thinking of this, Lin Qing's heart warmed up. If her teacher could soar to the 9th level, then her teacher would be able to become an official researcher, and she would receive more support and training. Chapter 234, Fate Brought Us Together. Chapter 234, Chapter 74 Fate Brought Us Together. That night, there were no senior brothers or sisters that Zhou Hui joked about knocking on the door. It was a very peaceful night. The next morning, when Su Yu went downstairs, he saw that Zhou Hui had already arrived. Bring your luggage. Zhou Hui was talking to the students and said loudly, when we enter the main campus later, we won't be able to let you stay here anymore. You'll need to pay for your usual accommodation. Bring your merit cards, bank cards, and registration cards. Zhou Hui reminded them loudly. The other senior brothers and sisters around them were also reminding the students to bring their belongings. We'll get on the number 18 bus later. Don't go to the wrong place. Report and make arrangements. As for the specific arrangements and choices of the academy, some people have already been directly arranged, and some people can choose freely. While they were busy, Su Yu and the others casually prepared some food before getting into the car. The Yingxin district was still quite a distance away from the main campus. If they didn't take the car to walk, some of the physically weak students might not be able to walk. If this was in Zhangjin College, it wouldn't normally exist. Very quickly, Su Yu and the others left the hotel. At the entrance, there was a long line of cars. The entire street was filled with students. There were less than 2,000 new students. Some of them went directly to the main campus to report, but there were also nearly 1,000 people in Yingxin district. A car could only seat about 20 people. There were more than 50 cars on the street. Su Yu looked around. He did not know if the people from Nanyuan had come or if there were any accidents on the road. However, there were too many people at the moment, so he could not see any familiar faces. Soon, everyone got into the car. Su Yu saw that Lu Ku was petite and had brought 2 large suitcases. He wanted to help carry them, but she had a vigilant look on her face. She was afraid that Su Yu would take her merit points. Su Yu did not know whether to laugh or cry when he saw this, so he could only give up on helping. Do I really look like a bad person? After getting into the car, Zhou Huiqing counted the number of people and quickly said, "Everyone, don't wander around when you sign up later. Also, if you meet old students at the academy, don't interact with those you don't know." Zhou Hui said seriously, to put it bluntly, there are quite a few lunatics in our academy. There are also some whose willpower has been shattered by the impact. Sometimes, you can't tell that these lunatics are fine if you don't provoke them. Once they get infected, they will be beaten to death. They will be unlucky, but if you die, then so be it. Zhou Hui's expression became more and more serious. I'm serious. Don't act as if nothing has happened. These students whose willpower has been shattered by the impact, and even some of them are at the level of researchers, you should know how strong they are. If they give you a slight blow, you will be finished. Of course, this kind of thing doesn't happen very often, but it has happened before. I'm warning you, if you get into trouble, no one will sympathize with you. Everyone immediately became serious and didn't dare to take it lightly anymore. Lu Ku said with some shock, "Senior sister, then these people, won't the academy interfere?" "Yes." Zhou Hui said gloomily, "But it's impossible for the academy to check on them every day. Some people have been in seclusion for a long time and suddenly come out. They're crazy. Who knows if they don't flare up? In the end, when they flare up, that means that someone is going to get into trouble. How do you think we can manage such a thing?" Lu Ku's face turned pale as he said, "We won't encounter it, right?" Zhou Hui smiled and said, "Don't say such things. The more you say it, the easier it is for us to encounter it. It was just to scare the freshmen. How could there be so many crazy people? These freshmen were all disobedient. Those who were talented and arrogant were the most troublesome. It was better to scare the two upper-class students in her team in advance. The car slowly started. Zhou Hui didn't mention the matter of the madman anymore. She waited for the car to start. She introduced the new arrival area to the students. In the future, when your family members come here, they can all stay here. Usually, they go out on missions or something. If they come back late, they can also stay here. Also, there's a lot of food here, and the taste is not bad. The old students also like to eat here. This is the famous food street of the academy. As Zhou Hui said this, she licked her lips. She giggled and said, "When you eat here, you can't come to the business district. The main business there is to buy and sell some cultivation resources. The new arrival area is a place to eat, drink, and have fun. There are also many clothing stores, and girls can come here to buy clothes." As soon as she said this, the female students immediately took notice. Zhou Hui giggled and said, "There is a woman's home in front. The clothes are very nice and the price is cheap. You can go and take a look when you have time. When you go and report my name, I will give you a discount." The students were also familiar with her yesterday. At this moment, a student chuckled and said, "Senior sister, if you report your name, will there be a kickback?" Zhou Hui did not mind and said casually, "Who would be interested in such a small kickback? The clothes are only worth a few dollars. They're really beautiful. Even if we get a kickback, we usually work with those high-profit trading companies." After saying that, Zhou Hui looked at Lu Ku and Su Yu and said with a laugh, "If any of you want to buy any cultivation technique originals, weapons, blood essence, pills, and talismans, you can look for me. I'll introduce you to the place. Also, if you don't have merit points, if you have money, you can look for me. If there are some resources in the academy that are not too restricted, you can use money to buy them. Oh right, if anyone wants to trade merit points, you can look for me too." After saying that, Lu Ku said in surprise, "Senior sister, the trading of merit points is illegal." Zhou Hui laughed, "That's a large-scale transaction. It's fine to trade a small amount in private. Some students can't even eat, they don't even have clothes to wear. With just a few merit points, if he trades them for money, can you stop him?" Chapter 235, Fate Brought Us Together Too. Chapter 235, Chapter 74 Fate Brought Us Together Too. Some students come from ordinary families. Their parents are in trouble at home and need money. If they don't trade merit points, what else can they do? Zhou Hui sighed, "If it's possible, no one is willing to trade merit points. Isn't there no other way?" No one said anything else. Su Yu, on the other hand, asked curiously, "Then how many transactions are counted as a large amount? If it exceeds 100 points, then be careful of being targeted." Zhou Hui reminded, "Once the transaction exceeds 100 points, the merit card will have some reminder mechanism. It will be monitored." "Then how about the exchange ratio?" Zhou Hui smiled and said, "Merit points are a necessity. Money really doesn't count." The merit point transaction was originally a gray area. Therefore, the black market price of merit points transactions was usually around 31,000 points. Looking at the situation, if someone was in urgent need of merit points, someone would buy 50,000 points. 50,000. Su Yu was speechless. This was too much. As expected, it was a gray area, and the difference in price was very high. Lu Ku said curiously, "But even if you get merit points, you won't be able to accumulate them and you won't be able to buy anything." Zhou Hui said speechlessly, "If you have merit points, are you afraid that you won't be able to buy anything? For example, I can buy the original 10,000 stone book. The academic institution gives us a quota of 1 book per month, about 100 merit points per book. But this is for those who have accumulated merit points, and those who haven't reached it can't buy it. I'll buy it. Someone is buying it from me. I can't be bothered with him. But if someone is willing to spend 200 merit points on mine, am I selling it or not?" Zhou Hui smiled and said, "You can also earn money by selling this. Of course, the quota is limited. You can only come once a month. Moreover, the demand is not too big. 1 book per month. In fact, others cannot use it at all. If they can use it, they can actually accumulate merit points to reach it." Zhou Hui said. Then she said, "There are some guys in the academy who specialize in doing these businesses. Every month, we investigate what the academy's students lack, what resources they need the most, and then organize people to buy and sell them. The academy turns a blind eye, but if you're unlucky and get wiped out, you'll suffer a huge loss." Zhou Hui shook her head and sighed. Last time, a group of US organized a large-scale transaction, but it was wiped out by the academy. Hundreds of students lost nearly 10,000 merit points, and there was no place to cry. A student hurriedly asked, "The academy will investigate?" "Nonsense, of course they will investigate." Zhou Hui gritted her teeth and said, "And the academy is very sinister. Those who report it will be rewarded with 1% of the merit points that are investigated. Last time, someone must have reported it in secret. All of a sudden, they can be rewarded with close to 100 merit points. Don't let anyone know who reported it, or else, wait for those guys who lost a lot to beat him to death." She had obviously lost a little, but it shouldn't be much. She didn't look like a rich person. In the car, Suyu shook his head, smiled, and didn't say anything. It looked like this business wasn't going to be easy. It was fine if the university didn't care, but once they checked, it would be a huge loss. How could the university not know that you were exchanging resources at the university? It was just that they were usually too lazy to pay attention to it. When your trading volume was too high, the university would take a drastic step and beat them to the brink of liberation. That would be truly miserable. As they chatted, Su Yu and the others saw the main campus. The reason why they knew that they had arrived at the main campus was because there was a door here. It was not even appropriate to say that it was a door. A very large archway acted as a door, and there were some soldiers wearing standard armor standing at the door. Suyu knew that it was not the city guards, not the government troops, but the guards of the academy. The civilized academy had the power to build guards. On the side of the Great Xia Civilized Academy, there were 1,000 guards that guarded the entire academy, and there were many experts among them. On the other side of the entrance, there were 8 guards, giving Suyu a dazzling feeling. This was the embodiment of 10,000 stones or even 10,000 stones. The 8 of them were all above the 10,000 stone realm and the 10,000 stone realm. "Get off!" Zhou Hui shouted and jumped down first, while the others followed. After a while, everyone began to line up and enter. Su Yu and the others were lining up. Behind them, a group of people swarmed over. "Make way!" Along with the shouts, a group of young men and women in gorgeous clothes walked over. The person leading the group was a young man in his 30s. He didn't look at them sideways and went straight for the main door. "Open the door." Originally, Su Yu and the others were lining up and walking through the main door. At this moment, a small door beside the main door was opened. A commotion could be heard from within the queue. Don't they need to queue up? Those young men and women were obviously new students. Some of them were even carrying suitcases and were not old. There were even some who were looking around curiously. Weren't they new students? On Su Yu's side, there were also some students who were dissatisfied and asked, "Senior sister, what's going on?" Zhou Hui did not find it strange and replied, "Don't worry about it, those are the newcomers from Beifeng Association. The academy has these local associations, so you should have some understanding of them. Those who pay the fees will be given preferential treatment and can use the special passageway." Someone replied unhappily, "That works too. How can the academy accept all kinds of fees?" Zhou Hui smiled and said, "If you have the money, you can also cut the queue. If they have the money to burn, who cares about them? They have to be ostentatious. You have to know that to open such a special passageway, one has to pay at least 100 merit points. Are you willing to do that? Everyone was speechless. They couldn't bear to do that. They could just wait in the queue for a while. Whoever was stupid could just pay the money. Suyu also couldn't help but laugh. In order to generate income, the academy was really going all out. Opening a door and getting 100 merit points, the black market price reached 3 to 5 million. This was robbery. Yet, there was someone who was willing to go up. How could the academy not agree? Chapter 236, Fate has brought us together 3. Chapter 236, Chapter 74 Fate has brought us together. The crowd's hearts were no longer in a state of disequilibrium. Money burned. Although they were envious, there was no one to stop them after they paid the money. If they paid the money themselves, there was no need for them to queue up. Over here, Beifeng's meeting had just ended. In the next moment, another group of people swarmed over. This time, Suyu saw an acquaintance, Hu Zongqi. This guy was actually inside, so this was the Tianshui Association. Beside Hu Zongqi, a young man with a smile on his face, who looked somewhat similar to Hu Zongqi, was walking. As he walked, he said in a clear voice, "We are from the Tianshui Association. Junior brothers and sisters, if you are interested, you can apply to join the Tianshui Association. You can apply if you have a middle or higher rating. The Tianshui Association often organizes some free sermons and invites some well-known researchers to preach at my association. Non-Tianshui city students can also apply to join." The young man shouted a few times. Without waiting for the crowd to react, he led his people into the side door. Hu Zongqi, who was beside him, was looking around when he suddenly saw Suyu in the crowd. He grinned with a proud expression on his face. He did not greet Suyu, but it seemed like he felt that he should go in first. There was no need to line up. He could be considered to have gained face in front of Suyu. "Look, I don't need to line up. So what if you are superior? You are still waiting outside to go in." Suyu smiled and ignored him. He was a fool. What was so great about going in first? Didn't he have to spend money? The Tianshui Association spent 100 merit points just to show off. How could they not earn it back from new students like you? If they were to really lose money, who would do it? Then these associations would have long gone bankrupt. Just as they finished here, more people came. There were many people in this group. They were like stars worshipping the moon, highlighting the few young men and women in front of them. Someone from the Great Xia Mansion has come. This year's elite students from the Great Xia Mansion. The person leading the team in front is Lu He. Lu He, who is he? He is ranked 87th on the top 100 list. His brother is the genius assistant teacher, Lu Hong. This guy made it into the top 100 list not long after entering the school. He's very impressive. Some of the older students started to discuss. Many of them looked at Lu He, who was at the front of the group. Top 100 students. In the Great Xia Civilization University, any one of the top 100 students was worthy of attention and envy. Lu He looked young and very young. Suyu also paid more attention to him. Lu He's brother, Lu Hong, did not seem to be on good terms with Beifeng. "Senior, do you know him?" Suyu asked Zhou Hui in a low voice. Zhou Hui said in a low voice, "I know him. He's a student in the top 100. How can I not know him? This guy is a genius. He just entered the academy last year, and he entered the top 100 half a year later. He successfully challenged the 87th place more than a month ago, and he directly entered the top 90. When he entered last year, he was in the upper and middle grades, and he even caused some trouble." Assistant teacher Lu Hong went to assistant teacher Beifeng to discuss accepting his younger brother as a student. In the end, he was rejected, and it caused quite a stir. Lu He entered the top 100, and he said to the public, "Thank you, assistant teacher Beifeng, for your discerning eyes and not accepting him. Zhou Hui said in a low voice, his words are sarcastic towards assistant teacher Bai. Everyone knows that. Su Yu raised his eyebrows. Was there really such a thing? Previously, Bai Feng had said that there were many geniuses in the academy who wanted to be under his name, but he couldn't be bothered with them. So it was true. This Lu he had a genius assistant brother and wanted to be Bai Feng's disciple. In the end, he was actually rejected. It was a severe slap to his face. This fellow was probably still unwilling to be on the top 100 list. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said those words. On the other side, Lu he walked at the front. His expression was cold, and his gaze was unwavering. He didn't care about the discussions of those people at all. When he was about to reach the side door, he suddenly turned around and looked at the people who were still in line. He said coldly, "Have the people from Nanyuan arrived?" No one made a sound. "Not here." Lu he muttered to himself but did not care. He said, "Nanyuan has an upper-class student this year. Su Yu is very impressive. Assistant instructor Bai Feng has accepted him as a disciple in advance. Very good. Such a genius will definitely be able to sweep across the entire academy. It's only a matter of time before he can soar into the sky. I heard that the upper-class people from Nanyuan are much stronger than some monstrous genius because they are people from Nanyuan. Lu he said lightly, if he comes, everyone should learn from him. I'm waiting for him in the top 100. I hope he can surpass me as soon as possible, lest people think that Assistant Bai is blind and has misjudged people. Assistant Bai is very strong. I hope this student called Su Yu won't embarrass Assistant Bai. After saying this, Lu he stepped into the door. After saying this, there was a slight commotion in the crowd. A high-level genius? A genius teaching assistant student? Even more powerful than a monster. Of course, they understood Lu He's words. On the surface, he was praising him, but in reality, he was waiting for Bai Feng to be slapped in the face. Back then, you didn't like me. Now that you've accepted a genius student, I'm waiting for him in the top 100 rankings. Can he enter the top 100 rankings? While I'm at it, I'll also draw hatred for Su Yu. You're even stronger than the monster of the Great Xia Mansion. Can you bear such a reputation? In the distance, beside Lu He, a youth laughed and said, Brother Lu, what are you doing? You insist on haggling with a freshman. Those fellows from the Xia and Hu families won't take it seriously at all. Brother Lu, be careful that they turn around and come looking for trouble with you. Lu he said calmly, I'm not afraid of a few rookies. If those few families come looking for me, I will let them know who they shouldn't provoke. As for Su Yu, I don't care how strong he is or how talented he is, but I don't want everyone to use me as a foil to him. He, Lu He, a student on the top 100 list, was rejected by Bai Feng. Chapter 237, Fate Brought Us Together for. Chapter 237, Chapter 74 Fate Brought Us Together for. Bai Feng took in Su Yu. Nowadays, in the circle of researchers, there were always people who liked to use him as a foil to Su Yu, which made Lu He very dissatisfied. This was the same as his big brother, there were always people who liked to use Lu Hong as a foil to Bai Feng. You geniuses are your business, why do you have to step on us to get to the top? Lu He stopped talking. In fact, he was not in the mood to care about Su Yu's matters. However, his big brother said that since we are not on good terms with Bai Feng, then we will find an opportunity to slap Bai Feng in the face. There is nothing to be afraid of. If Bai Feng did not give us face, then we did not need to give Bai Feng face either. It was not a secret that Lu Hong and Bai Feng were not on good terms. Everyone knew that they were sworn enemies. Lu He thought about this in his heart. As he walked, he said, Su Yu is just a freshman. He is not worth mentioning. There is no need to waste too much energy on him. If we meet him, we will just have to teach him a lesson. Your mission is to enter the top 100 ranking as soon as possible. The more people we have in the top 100 ranking, the more stable our position in the academy will be. Brother Lu, don't worry. We will try our best to enter the top 100 within a year. I hope so. Lu He did not have much hope in his heart. These were all new students as well. To enter the top 100 within a year, did they really think that everyone was like him? Although many of these people were upper-class students could reach the top 100 within a year. If they really wanted to enter the top 100 so easily, then the top 100 ranking would not become the goal of the Great Xia Academy students. At the same time, Zhou Hui and the others looked at Su Yu with shocked expressions. Nan Yuan, Su Yu. Was it him? Zhou Hui and Lu Ku had guessed it, but the other students had not expected it. At this moment, they looked at Su Yu with a strange expression. Lu Ku said worriedly, Su Yu, you are the Su Yu that he mentioned, right? Su Yu smiled and nodded slightly. He did not deny it. Then you. Lu Ku did not know what to say. He said softly, then you've really offended him badly. Su Yu smiled and said, I don't even know him. How did I offend him badly? Lu Ku said softly, when he said those words just now, those evildoers and geniuses would definitely come looking for trouble with you. Su Yu laughed and said, just because of one sentence from him, they came looking for trouble with me? Then these people are not evildoers but fools. To deal with fools. I think I still have a trick up my sleeve. Su Yu shook his head, his face was still full of smiles. A true evildoer would not come to find trouble with me, but to find trouble with him, Lu He. How high his horizons are, how great his achievements are. If he really came to find me, he is not considered an evildoer. At most, his basic conditions are better. I am not afraid of such a person. He said these words very seriously. If it was because of Lu He's simple provocation, he came to find a person who was not as good as him to compete. At the very least, in the assessment, he, Su Yu, was superior. He was not as good as those people. Then, such a monster. What kind of monster was he? He was impetuous, could not keep his cool, and was easily impulsive. Su Yu was really not afraid of them. If someone provoked him, and there was a guy who was superior to him, would he go and find trouble with him just because of this provocation? Unless that person came to provoke him himself. At the side, Zhou Hui glanced at him with a strange look in her eyes. Soon, she revealed a smile and giggled, Junior Su, you're very awesome. You should know that when Lu He spoke just now, I was a little scared. I didn't expect you to not be worried at all. As she said that, Zhou Hui said with some anticipation, Junior, are you really an upper-class rating? Yes. I heard it from others. During the assessment, your civil will was broken. Is that true? Probably broken. Then, Zhou Hui gossiped, are you really not up to the upper-class standard? At this moment, the people around them were all interested and looked at Su Yu. Su Yu smiled and said, it's useless to ask me that. Only the examiner can do it. But. Su Yu paused for a moment and smiled. But I feel that my test results are still pretty good. The upper class shouldn't be too far off. If someone thinks that they can replace me, they can try. He said it indifferently, but he was holding back a wave of anger in his heart. Did he really think that I relied on luck to get into the upper class? Hu Zongqi thought so, and so did the others. They all thought that if I went to the Southern Yuan, I could also get into the upper class. What were they thinking? Wu Lan was considered a genius, right? In the end, she barely managed to get into the upper class in the Southern Yuan. And long before that, Wu Lan had already been rated upper middle in the Great Xia manner. Keep a low profile for a few days. I'll try my best to improve my willpower. When the time comes, I'll directly challenge the top 100. Lu He. Alright, after Lin Qing, you'll be next. Su Yu gnashed his teeth in hatred. No matter what, he was only 18. Being questioned again and again, Su Yu was also holding back his anger. Just now, when Lu He shouted, he could not be bothered. His strength was not as good as his, and his status was not as good as his. If he stood out and embarrassed himself, there was no need for him to say a few harsh words. Biting dogs don't bark, cough cough, a low-profile person did not need harsh words. When he was confident, he would step on his face and beat him up. This was a real man. Hu Zongqi, Lu He, I'll remember these two. The small account book in Su Yu's heart started to be recorded. Hu Zongqi could simply clean up the mess, but Lu He would have to give it a good beating. Plus, Zhou Tianqi and the others. Maybe there's also Lu Hong, he hit the young one and then the old one. Does Hu Yuhui want to write it down? Su Yu fell into deep thought. He felt that it was really time for him to get a ledger and learn from Chen Hao. Some things had to be written down, and then he would seek revenge one by one. Chapter 238, Fate Brought Us Together 5. Chapter 238, Chapter 74 Fate Brought Us Together 5. Chen Hao's dream was to take revenge on his father and find an opportunity to empty his father's personal savings. Su Yu's dream was of course a little higher. It was best to empty those guys' pockets. Su Yu fell into deep thought. The others thought that he did not want to talk about this again, so naturally, they could not say anything more. However, with an upper-class student by his side, these people still paid more attention to him. At the same time, in the depths of the academy, in a research institute, Bai Feng picked up the call. His face was pale as he yawned and said, "School has started." "So soon?" Lu He said something fierce. Bai Feng was stunned. Who is Lu He? On the other end of the line, the person who reported to him was also stunned. After a long while, he said, "Lu Hong's younger brother." "Oh, I got it." Bai Feng complained, "Can you not tell me the names of these strangers? Just tell me the names of Lu Hong's younger brother. I have a lot of things to do. How can I have the time to remember their names? I'll remember them next time. Xia Yuan's nephew, younger brother, or grandson is fine. It's the same for the Hu family, anyway, don't tell me the names directly. Otherwise, I won't be able to remember them." Su Yu is here, right? Did this kid just show up? Didn't show up. Bai Feng mumbled, is he so low-key? It's not good for a young man to grow old. He can directly challenge Lu Hong's younger brother. What's there to be afraid of? An invitation, a challenge, a one-on-one duel in 3 months. Whoever loses will be a grandson, that's how he's going to be imposing. The person in the communication was tired. Bai Feng, he just entered the school. Lu He has been in the school for a year. And he's entered the top 100. The top 100? Bai Feng said nonchalantly, the top 100 is nothing. It's not like he's in the top 10. Those at the back are all trash. The top 10 are still a little uncertain. Those in the top 10 and beyond are all trash. I said it. He just entered the school. That person was furious. Do you understand what I'm saying? Oh, that's right. It's fine. I'll beat him up in a few months. I'll beat him up until he can't take care of himself. Then. Bai Feng quickly said, all right, keep an eye on him for me first. I'll be out in a few days. Remember, don't let anyone take him away. If anyone tries to snatch him away, go look for him. Tell Su Yu that I guarantee that he'll be able to make it into the top 100 within 3 months. Can you stop bragging? What's there to be afraid of? He doesn't know that I'm bragging. If he can't do it in 3 months, that's because he's incompetent. Does he have the nerve to say that I can't teach him well? After Bai Feng said that, he hurriedly said, let's not talk about it anymore. I'm about to get some results. If that kid Suyu dares to run away, I'll break his legs. If it weren't for him, would I have to stay in the lab for a few months without leaving the house? It's all because of you. The person on the other end of the line angrily rebuked. If it weren't for you scamming the teacher away, there wouldn't have been a need for this. You're asking for it. Bai Feng was too lazy to say anything else. He quickly hung up the call. He muttered, "This won't do. In a few days, I'll give that kid a simple training and throw him into the laboratory to do some chores. I'm so busy that I don't even have time to sleep. Working 20 hours a day should be able to withstand it, right?" He calculated for a moment and felt that 4 hours of sleep should be enough. Geniuses needed to be trained well. How could they not be trained? 4 hours of sleep a day wouldn't kill anyone. You can't even enter this laboratory even if you want to. You're taking advantage of me, do you understand? Bai Feng found a way to comfort himself. That kid was poor and had never seen money before. If I told him that I would give him 5 merit points a month, he would laugh himself to death. As for the merit points, of course, Lu Hong would do it. Chapter 239, Self-Reliance 1. Chapter 239, Chapter 75 Self-Reliance 1. Outside the academy. It was Su Yu's turn. After passing through the gate, Su Yu officially stepped into the Great Xia Civilization Academy. The trees were shaded, and the roadside was filled with flowers and plants. The entire academy looked like a garden. On the lawn, some small animals could be seen running. In the distance, one could see the lotus flowers in the artificial lake. "It's so beautiful!" Lu Ku exclaimed. The others also nodded. The environment of the main campus of the academy was very beautiful. It was not as depressing as before. Zhou Hui had long been fed up with it and did not have much anticipation. After waiting for the students to look at it for a while, Zhou Hui immediately said, "Let's go. Go to the registration office. You will get tired of looking at these things in the future." A few minutes later, everyone arrived at the reception hall of the new students. They still had to queue up. However, this time, there were 10 windows opened, so the speed was not slow. After waiting for more than 10 minutes, it was Su Yu's turn. "Lu Ku, high class, are you staying in the Nature Conservation Garden?" The person in charge of registration was a teacher, not a researcher. At this moment, he raised his head and looked at Lu Ku. "If you are staying in the Nature Conservation Garden, you can pay a 50,000 yuan accommodation fee or 1 merit point. Stay." Lu Ku hurriedly nodded. She had heard from Zhou Hui that a room for 8 people was very crowded. As he spoke, he said, "Pay up, don't pay up." "All right, a total of 67,000. The process of swiping the card and registering was very fast. In the blink of an eye, 67,000 was gone. Su Yu, who was watching from behind, felt his heart ache. He desperately wanted money. What should he do? Su Yu was next. He handed in his registration card and the instructor checked his information. He looked up at Su Yu in surprise. "Su Yu. Here. So you're Su Yu." The instructor smiled and said, "You're quite famous. The nature garden is also divided into districts. Which district do you live in, the normal district or the high-class district?" Su Yu was speechless. Why didn't you ask if he lived in the nature garden? However, Su Yu was still interested and asked, "Teacher, is there a difference?" "It's simple. The normal district is a small apartment. The rooms are not big and each person has a room. There are people upstairs and downstairs. The high-grade district is a small villa. The environment is good and it is convenient to cultivate." As he said, he smiled and said, "The academy has a special grade district. It is also a single house. However, there is a benefit. The Yuan Qi is very rich and it is close to the Yuan Qi mystic realm. The normal class area is 1 merit point per year, while the high-class area is 10 merit points per year. The special class area is too expensive. It costs 100 merit points per year. The instructor said, I suggest you go to the high-class area. The special class area is too stressful for you, and the normal class area is not too good either. The academy also has 3 merit points per month for the high-class area. 10 merit points per year is not too much. Then, he said, not everyone can go there. You are the high-class area, that's why these privileges are open to you. Those low-class students will only go to the normal class area if they have merit points. The high-class area and the special class area will not be given to them unless they have accumulated enough merit points. Suyu smiled bitterly. He had no money. No merit points. He had used up all the merit points before, but the ones on the way hadn't arrived yet. Teacher, I'll stay in an ordinary dormitory. The instructor looked at him in surprise and said seriously, young man, don't be reluctant to spend money, or you'll regret it. Suyu said helplessly, I don't have any merit points anymore. It's alright, I checked for you. There was a sum of 42 merit points in the morning. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to recommend you to the special class area. Suyu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So you saw it, didn't you? No wonder you recommended me to the high class area, the special class area. It seemed that the military had distributed the merit points. The efficiency was not slow. Suyu heaved a sigh of relief. He was finally less nervous. He thought for a moment and said, then let's go to the normal class area. He could still afford 1 merit point. As for the advanced section, forget it, it was too expensive. Zhou Hui said that there would be 8 people in one room, which dispelled Suyu's thoughts of going to the normal dormitory. There were too many people, so he could not cultivate properly. His cultivation by devouring blood essence would also be easily discovered by others. I still suggest that you go to the advanced section. Even though he said so, the instructor still helped him with the formalities. He exhorted, go and pick up the books and clothes in the afternoon. There are arrangements for the specific procedures of where you will stay. Thank you, teacher. Suyu thanked her and a key appeared in his hand. In the hall, Zhou Hui waited for Suyu to arrive and asked, are you staying in the nature garden? Yes. It just so happens that I'm there too. Zhou Hui smiled and said, my task has been completed. You and Lu Ku can follow me. It's on the way. Suyu was still worried that he wouldn't be able to find the place. When he heard that, he heaved a sigh of relief and thanked her, sorry to trouble senior sister. You're welcome. Zhou Hui didn't bother with the students who were still queuing up. After these people finished their registration, they arranged the dormitory. On the way here, Zhou Hui had already told her where the dormitory was, so she didn't have to worry about it. At the side, Lu Ku dragged 2 large boxes and followed them. As they walked, she curiously looked at Suyu and said, Student Suyu, just now, did your family give you merit points? She had heard that Suyu had received 42 merit points today. He was really rich. Of course, as a top-class student, she did not really lack merit points. She was just a little curious. Wasn't Suyu from Nanyuan? She heard that his family background was average. Where did he get so many merit points? Suyu smiled and said, yes, my dad gave it to me. Uncle is really generous. Lu Ku had an envious look on his face. When my dad came, he said that he wanted me to rely on myself, so he transferred 30 merit points to Maine. Suyu was speechless. Are all of you guys this rich? Chapter 240, Self-Reliance 2. Chapter 240, Chapter 75, Self-Reliance 2. He would receive dozens of merit points at any time. However, it was understandable. When children came to school, the cost of the school was high, so the family had to try their best to support them. For example, Chen Hao secretly told Suyu that when he came, his father transferred 20 merit points to him. As they chatted, they soon arrived at a garden-style residential area. There were guards on duty outside the door. Before they entered, they saw big trees rising into the sky. Zhou Hui introduced, the nature garden is very big, but now only students under the age of 30 are allowed to live here. Otherwise, they won't be able to live here. The new students can live in the upper class, but the old students have to live in the nature garden. Most of the nature garden students will live here, close to 5,000 people. There are a total of 50 ordinary apartment buildings here. They are all 6-story buildings with 20 households on each floor. All of them can live up to 6,000 people. There is also the upper class area, which is not with us. 50 buildings. No matter where they were placed, they would be considered an extremely large and small area. Zhou Hui smiled and said, you should be divided into 3 and 4 buildings. The new students should live there. Previously, some of the older students over the age of 30 moved away. The school has vacated 2 buildings. They are probably prepared for you. Su Yu looked at the number on the key and nodded. 3 buildings, 609. Then Lu Ku will live in 4 buildings. 3 for the boys, and 4 for the girls. Lu Ku also looked at the key and hurriedly said, yes, I live in 4 buildings, 303. Zhou Hui pointed at a few small buildings in front of them and said, it's over there. I live in 28 buildings. If you have nothing to do, you can come and ask me about the situation. If you don't know anything, you can ask me. As she led the 2 of them forward, there were also some old students passing by. However, they came and went in a hurry, so no one bothered them. A few minutes later, Su Yu's 3 buildings arrived. It was just an ordinary old building. The nature garden had been built for a long time. Although it was renovated sometimes, it still looked a little dilapidated. Su Yu, then I won't send you up. Zhou Hui said goodbye to Su Yu and said with a smile, I'll leave my contact number with you. Remember to call me if there's anything. I will. Thank you for your help, senior sister. You're welcome. Zhou Hui smiled brightly. If there's anything good, think of senior sister. It's not easy for us old students. Just a little bit of oil from you geniuses is enough to fill our stomachs. Su Yu nodded with a smile and did not say anything else. He could not even protect himself now, so of course he did not have the ability to agree to anything. Moreover, he was not that close to Zhou Hui. Of course, if there was really something good, it would be a piece of cake for him to help her out. Student Su Yu, goodbye. Lu Ku also waved at him and hurriedly ran away with Zhou Hui as if he was a little afraid of Su Yu. Su Yu was helpless. No matter how he looked at it, he did not feel like a bad person. Why was Lu Ku always looking at him as if he was a bad person? There was no elevator in the old building. As it was for the new students, there were not many people at the moment. The entire building was almost silent. 6th floor, room 609. Su Yu opened the door and a musty smell wafted out. The old man had moved away for some time. After a long time, there was no one living there, so the smell was so bad. Before Su Yu could enter the room, someone beside him laughed and said, classmate, do you need help? Su Yu turned his head to look. A slightly plump, honest-looking boy with a funny smile was looking at him. When he saw Su Yu looking at him, he said with a silly smile, classmate, you're also a freshman, right? The room is very dirty. I just took a look. Do you need me to help clean it up? Su Yu glanced at him and said, for free. The slightly chubby boy laughed dryly. That is more or less the same. I have a divine text that is specially used for cleaning. It's very convenient and can be completed in a while. Su Yu's heart froze. Divine text. It could even be used to outline the complete divine text. He did not expect to meet a freshman who had outlined the complete divine text just as he arrived. Moreover, he actually came to solicit business and clean up. At this moment, Suyu took a look inside the room. It wasn't big, around 40 square meters. There was a bathroom, an open kitchen, and no living room. Or rather, the living room and the bedroom were one. It wasn't bad, but it was indeed a little dirty. You can buy the bedding at the shop below. Classmate, I can also buy it on behalf of you. Just give me an errand fee. Suyu turned his head to look at the slightly plump boy again. He opened his mouth and could not help but ask, how much is it? Cheap. The slightly plump boy smiled foolishly and said, 1 merit point for cleaning. You don't receive merit points for buying on your behalf. Just give me 100 points for running. After all, using divine runes to clean requires willpower. Suyu looked at him and smiled. He entered the door and slammed it shut. Do you think I'm stupid? 1 merit point is worth tens of thousands of dollars. I only received 1 merit point for a year when I stayed in the recuperation garden. Even this makes my heart ache to death. You still want to charge me? Even if it's free, I can consider it. Outside the door, the chubby boy was a little disappointed. Was 1 merit point that much? So stingy. The next moment, his ears twitched and he had a new target. Very quickly, a conversation came from downstairs. Classmate, do you need help? Obviously, a new student had arrived. In the room, Suyu shook his head and smiled without saying anything. He was sure that this guy would have a business. Almost all of the people who stayed in the nature garden were top-tier geniuses. There were quite a few people from big clans. This room was dirty. They might not mind spending 1 merit point to clean it. This is a good business. Suyu sighed and said somewhat resentfully, I have 2 divine runes, why don't I have this characteristic? Otherwise, I would definitely make a fortune today. Chapter 241, Self-Reliance 3. Chapter 241, Chapter 75 Self-Reliance. There were more than 100 households in a building. Even if they weren't fully occupied, they could still live in 50 to 60 people. If half of the people weren't willing to clean themselves, that would still be 30 merit points. This was a very big deal. Moreover, the money-making speed was extremely fast, safe, and convenient. It was comparable to killing 3 early-stage 10,000 Stone Realm experts. It was a pity, but unfortunately, the divine inscriptions weren't strong enough, so Suyu had no choice. Putting down his luggage, Suyu glanced at the room. Not only was it dirty, there weren't any necessities either. Sigh. He had to spend money again. He didn't stay in an ordinary dormitory building just now. The academy had charged him 17,000 yuan in tuition fees. At this time, Suyu only had around 5,000 yuan in cash and 41 merit points left. Let's clean up first. Suyu casually picked up a piece of tattered clothes and started to clean his room. Suyu was cleaning his room, and the 3 buildings gradually started to become lively. The new students started to move in one after another. Not everyone could afford to live in a high-class area. Even if they could, some people were unwilling to live there. 10 merit points. Unless one's family was really rich, it would be too much of a waste to just live in a better place. Some students actually wanted to have a good time. Although it was good to live alone, it was less lively when one was alone. There were too many people in one room in an ordinary dormitory. It was not good for cultivation. However, this kind of apartment-style residence was more suitable for one person and one family. Everyone was in the same building. The 3 buildings became lively. A slightly plump boy was interspersed on each floor, earning a lot of merit points. While the older students were still worrying about earning merit points, the slightly plump male student simply cleaned up and quickly earned more than 10 merit points. Earning money, isn't that difficult? The slightly plump male student sighed. He felt that it was very easy. He had earned more than 10 merit points on the first day of school. Moreover, it seemed that there was still a wave in the afternoon, so earning 30 merit points wasn't that difficult. At this moment, Fatty was cleaning a student's room. That student could not help but ask, "Student, what is the divine script you drew? Can it only be used for cleaning?" Fatty smiled foolishly and said, "Currently, it seems to only have this characteristic." "That's too much of a waste, what a pity." This person felt regretful for a while, and then said, "Oh right, what's your name?" "Xia Huyo." "You're bluffing." The student who was conversing with him was stunned. What kind of name was that? Fatty hurriedly explained, "I don't mean that. It's Xia. Xia of the great Xia Manor. The tiger of the tiger, especially. Surname Xia." The new student was also stunned. "You're not from the Xia family, right?" "Sort of. Distant relative." Xia Huyo said helplessly, "The Xia family of the great Xia Manor has been passed down for so many years. There are quite a number of people surnamed Xia. Other than the direct descendants of the great Xia emperor, the other members of the Xia family are no different from ordinary families." The new student also nodded when he heard this and said, "That's true. If not, it would be too shocking if the members of the Xia family cleaned up for me." "Oh right, I heard that there seems to be someone from Lord Xia's line who wants to enter the manor this year. Do you know?" "I know." Xia Huyo curled his lips and said, "It's a woman." "What's her name?" "I've forgotten. She's a very arrogant fellow. However, she doesn't live here and lives in the special grade district. She's really rich. What a waste. She's willing to spend 100 merit points a year. Lord Xia Ho is rich. He's the richest man in the great Xia mansion. Why would he care about that bit of merit points?" The new student also sighed. People were different from each other. She lived in the special class area and had 100 merit points. Even a large family would not be willing to spend so much money. The new student saw that he was good at talking and asked again, "You're running around everywhere. Is there any powerful character in our building?" "A few evildoers either live in the special class or high-class areas. In our building, the most powerful one is probably that guy from 609, Suyu, Nan Yuan, Suyu, who took the upper-class assessment." "Suyu." The new student quickly reacted and said, "Is that the guy who got into the upper class because his civilized will was broken?" "You all know." Xia Huyo said in surprise, "Do you really think that that guy could get into the upper class because his civilized will was broken? Isn't that so?" This person also said in surprise, "I heard that it's like this. His willpower is not strong, but he got a very high score in this test. It seems that he has no character. If his civilized will was not broken, could he get into the upper class?" Xia Huyo chuckled and said, "Feel free to think whatever you want, but don't provoke that fellow. No matter what, he's still at the 9th level of the Yuan opening realm. With our current strength that has just entered the self-restraint realm, if the might of the divine runes isn't great, if we encounter him, we'll kill him with a slap." 9th level of the Yuan opening realm. The new student nodded. Indeed, everyone's willpower might be stronger than that fellow, but there were some people who were very weak in the path of the fighter. Provoking Suyu at this stage was just asking for a beating. Those evildoers aren't afraid of him. I heard that there are even people in the 1000 June realm. That has nothing to do with us. Xia Huyo had already finished cleaning the room. As he walked, he said, "In the future, if you have any problems, you can call me. I'll print out some business cards and send them out. I can help you clean up once a week so that you don't have to do it yourself." "Alright, thank you, student Xia." "You're welcome." Xia Huyo smiled again. Look, earning money was that simple. If he earned money from others, they would have to thank him. If he were to contract for the cleaning of the entire garden of recuperation, he would earn like crazy. However, he heard that the school seemed to provide this service as well. Very soon, Xia Huyo reached the 6th floor. He was also living on the 6th floor. Otherwise, he would not have been able to see Su Yu so quickly. He looked at room 609. The door was tightly shut. Xia Huyo raised his eyebrows. Su Yu, first class, Nanyuan genius, Lu Wenyan student. Chapter 242, Self-Reliance 4. Chapter 242, Chapter 75, Self-Reliance 4. Everything is good, but it's a little stingy. If you can't even bear to spend a single merit point, then you should be exhausted to death. Just as he was thinking, the door opened and Su Yu saw the slightly chubby youth in the corridor. He smiled and said, "Classmate, may I ask, are there many places selling bedding downstairs?" "Not many, just 3. There's only one nearby." "Thank you." Su Yu thanked him, closed the door, and walked out. Xia Huyo asked, "You really don't need me to buy it on your behalf? 100 yuan is very cheap. If you don't have cash, we can swipe our cards on the spot. I have people who support swiping cards here." "No need, thank you." Su Yu had a smile on his face. He cursed in his heart. "Who's going to make money for you? Isn't 100 yuan money? Do you think I don't have legs? By the way, where's the canteen?" "The canteen is a little far. There's one at the recuperation garden, but it's over at building 15. Su Yu nodded and said, "Classmate, you can buy some lunchboxes and send them over. Everyone has just arrived and they're already so tired. They definitely won't be bothered to run anymore. You can send them over, so it shouldn't be a problem for you to get some money." Xia Huyo sighed and said, "I want to too, but it's not that profitable. The canteen is also desperate for money. It's too expensive. If we add more money, we might as well go out for a big meal." "Is it very expensive?" "Very expensive." Xia Huyo nodded and gritted his teeth. "I need to recharge my merit points. When I spend 10,000 yuan, I can eat you for hundreds of yuan a meal. After a month, I can finish eating 1 merit point." Su Yu was speechless. Damn, the academy must be crazy about money. Then if you don't have merit points, are you going to starve to death? That's not the case. You can cook your own meals, or you can go to the Yingxin district to eat. They charge cash there. It's not expensive, but the canteen is expensive. Su Yu smiled bitterly. When he arrived at the academy, he realized that he was really poor. The academy was really a scam. When Xia Huyo saw that he had struck up a conversation with him, he also followed him. As they walked, he said, "Classmate, in the academy, you have to learn how to earn your own money. The academy encourages students to be self-reliant. Otherwise, there are so many people in the academy, and they are all cultivators. The academy can't afford to support them." Su Yu nodded. That was true. The academy had close to 100,000 people. It was too many. They really couldn't afford to support them. We are all new students. We don't have many ways to earn money. We can't snatch the mission. Don't look at how extravagant they are now. In a few months, the new students will be no different from beggars. Xia Huyo sighed, "We have to open up the source. It won't work if we rely on our family." "Okay." Su Yu nodded again. Xia Huyo whispered, "Brother, I have a way to earn money. Do you want to get involved?" Su Yu turned his head to look at him and smiled. "A way to earn money, and you're still looking for me? We're not close, right? Once you're new, twice you're familiar. It's nothing." Xia Huyo did not mind and smiled. "Your name is Su Yu. I know. You're a top-notch genius, but your family's conditions are average, right? Do you want to earn money?" Su Yu looked at him and did not say anything. "It's really very simple. I'll help you do the publicity and fan the flames. I'll get people to come and challenge you one-on-one. If you win or lose, you can collect money. What do you think? Suyu smiled and said, why don't I help you do the publicity and get people to challenge you one-on-one? Xia Huyu said helplessly, I want to too, but my popularity is not as high as yours. Suyu's popularity is very high. It just so happened that during the assessment, your civilized will was ruined. Many people think that you don't deserve to be top-notch. This is an opportunity. You can take what you get. When you really show your talent and strength, people will not doubt you, and the opportunity will be gone. Forget it, you can play by yourself. Suyu admitted that his heart was slightly moved just now, but he quickly thought that it would be very troublesome and would provoke many enemies. There was no need for that. He still had 41 merit points. As soon as possible, he would cultivate to Qianjun. Willpower was the right path. After entering the top 100, he could choose to keep a low profile for a period of time. Lay low for a while. If he chose to show weakness to others, perhaps, he could wait for others to challenge him and earn a ticket fee. That was 10 merit points per challenge. Of course, if he did it too many times, others would not believe him. I can be a goalkeeper for a period of time. Suyu calculated in his heart. As for the current stage, there was no need to show weakness. It would make others feel that he was useless. He did not need to worry about being on the top 100. Classmate, I forgot to ask, what is your name? Xia Huyo, Xia of the Xia family, Tiger of the Tiger. Xia Huyo hurriedly introduced him. He had been used to explaining all these years. Suyu laughed. This name was pretty good. Chapter 243, Agreement 1. Chapter 243, Chapter 76 Agreement 1. The shop downstairs. Bedding, towels, brooms, toothbrushes, toothpaste. When he was done with the shopping, the price was painful. It was almost 3,000 yuan. Suyu, who did not have much left, suddenly had only 2,000 yuan left. He still chose to buy ordinary things. If he really bought more expensive things, he would not be able to stop it without spending a few merit points. After Suyu finished buying, Xia Huyo was also wandering around the shop. After Suyu finished buying, Xia Huyo said to the boss, follow my instructions later and send one copy of those room numbers over. Sure. The boss agreed readily and laughed, a total of 28 copies, I'll remember it. Suyu glanced at Xia Huyo. This guy had just ordered all of them. He bought 28 sets at one go, and the boss even gave him a discount. After all, there was more than one shop here. There were 3 shops in the nature garden. I'll also help him send up his. Xia Huyo pointed at Suyu and said with a smile, I won't charge you for buying for me. Don't be so vigilant. Student Suyu, you need to rely on your friends when you go out. Having more friends means more roads. Why are you keeping people away? No need. I can bring it up myself. You're not going to eat? Don't you have to go downstairs later? Xia Huyu smiled and said, you shouldn't be familiar with this place, right? If you eat alone, don't be unable to find a place. If you're killed, you'll suffer even more losses. Suyu was still a little vigilant. He didn't say anything else and walked out of the shop. As if unintentionally, he said, you're very familiar with this place. I'm all right. I've been here a few times before. Xia Huyo smiled foolishly and said, I'm from the side branch of the Xia family after all. There are still a few people in my family who go to school here. I've been here a few times before. Aren't you busy? Suyu asked again. Why was this guy always following him? I'm not busy. It's time to eat. I have to eat. I can't keep earning money by combining work and rest, right? Xia Huyo looked at his expression and smiled. Don't be afraid. There's no need to be so attentive. Upper-class students, everyone can try to build a relationship. I've already said that having more friends means more paths. The academy has a total of 1,892 students this year. There are 145 upper-class students, of which 26 are upper-class, 23 are in the upper-class area, and 2 are in the special class area. You're the only one in our normal area. It's very normal to get close to them. Xia Huyo chuckled and said, "There's no love for no reason. Don't worry, I won't do anything to you. We're classmates after all. If you have the talent to make friends with us, you might be able to benefit from it in the future. We do business and like to cook cold stoves. Now that you're cold, it won't cost much to cook a fire." Su Yu was amused by him. Seeing this, Xia Huyo said again, "As for me, I don't have any great abilities. However, there are a few benefits that you might be able to use. First, I have a wide range of sources. If you don't know anything, you can ask me. Generally, information is free. If it's important, you can collect some money. Second, my family also does business. There are some things that you can't buy in the academy, so you can look for me to buy them. Third, you can look for me to trade for merit points. My price is fair, and it's much safer than the black market. Fourth, my family also lends money, so the interest isn't high. If you're short of money or merit points, you can look for me, but only if you're worth that price." Xia Huyo's smile was brilliant, "So you should understand why I want to befriend you, right? Geniuses. Once a business is done, it's a big business. Those mediocrities would have to be stingy and search for a yuan qi liquid for a long time. But geniuses are different. They even dare to buy a drop of deity and devil blood essence." Xia Huyo said in astonishment, "A drop of sky-soaring realm deity and devil blood essence can be sold for 1,000 merit points on the black market. It's frighteningly high. Some rich guys don't buy a drop every time they buy it. They can easily buy more than a dozen drops, over 10,000 merit points. This is a big deal." Xia Huyo looked at Su Yu and smiled even more brightly, "You're a genius. How long will it take you to fly? Do you want the demon essence blood to cast a body? Do you want to buy it? If you want to buy it, the academy has a limit on it, and there's also a merit level limit. If you look for me. Then wouldn't it be a big deal?" Su Yu said in surprise, "You can still buy and sell demon essence blood here?" Cough cough, Xia Huyo laughed and said, "Not now, I don't have the qualifications. But there's no rush, you need time to fly, right? When the time comes, I might have the qualifications. Even if I don't, I can still introduce people to you and collect some introduction fees. The Xia family can do this business." Xia Huyo laughed and said, "Ordinary people can't, but if someone vouches for you, then there won't be a problem. As long as you, Su Yu, aren't a beast of the myriad clan religion, then there won't be a big problem." Su Yu couldn't help but look up to him. It seemed like he was a capable person. The side branch of the Xia family, no matter how the side branch was, they were still members of the Xia family. In the great Xia manner, the Xia family was the true king, not the uncrowned king, but the crowned king. Su Yu couldn't hate him. This fellow spoke frankly, but instead gave people a feeling that they could trust him. "You just said that there are 145 upper-class students in the academy. How many are those freakish students?" "Well," Xia Huyo said with a smile, "it's a secret. Even the academy won't reveal it to the public unless they expose it themselves. Of course, I have a lot of connections. I know a little, but there's a fee." "How much?" "Let's not talk about money. Merit points, 50 points. Xia Huyo said with a smile, "Don't think it's expensive. To put it bluntly, if this kind of information is sold to the Myriad Clan Church, they can take 1,000 merit points at will. Of course, whoever does this will die. But you also understand that this information is very important. At the very least, before they take flight, this information is still valuable. Chapter 244, Reached Agreement 2. Chapter 244, Chapter 76 Reached Agreement 2. Suyu nodded slightly. I can't afford it. I won't ask any more. Don't. Xia Huyo smiled and said, I can tell you the general number of people. It should be 8. I'm just saying that it should be. I really don't know the specifics. But if you want to know the name, strength, background, divine runes, characteristics, then you really have to pay. Suyu nodded. After thinking for a moment, he said, then can I ask a few more questions? You can ask. If it's not important, then it's easy to say. Before I came here, Assistant Bai Feng said that he wanted to take me in. Do you think it's appropriate for me to become teacher Bai Feng's disciple? This. Xia Huyo said embarrassedly, it's hard to say. I know about you. Let's see what you think. Suyu said calmly, I don't think much. I just want to ask how much help he can provide me. Also, teacher Zhao Li from the weapon forging department said the same thing. I want to compare who is more worthy for me to rely on. Xia Huyo looked at him in surprise. Researcher Zhao also wants to recruit you. Yes. Then you really have some ability. Xia Huyo gave him a thumbs up. That old man hasn't taken in students for a long time. Don't look at his strength as average, but his temper isn't good. In addition, he's one of the top figures in the weapon forging department, so his status isn't low. Xia Huyo hesitated for a moment and said, since you asked, let me briefly explain my understanding. As for Bai Feng, his strength isn't considered strong, at least for the older generation. Having a strong talent is his business, and it has nothing to do with you. Bai Feng's school doesn't have many resources. The strongest one should be Bai Feng's teacher, Master Hong. However, Bai Feng's school might be more suitable for you, Xia Huyo explained, their school focuses on the fusion of divine runes. Divine runes are the main element, and they aren't limited to individual divine runes. The fusion-type divine runes are also very powerful. Not only so, their lineage also attaches great importance to the cultivation of the physical body. In the recuperation phase, they possess a stronger fighting strength. Because there are many divine texts, their requirements for the physical body are quite high. Suyu frowned slightly. Was that so? Teacher Lu should also belong to this lineage. He didn't see how strong his physical body was. Previously, he was still in the Qianjun realm. He didn't interrupt, Xia Huyo continued, however, the most important thing in their branch isn't these. It's a project that Master Hong has been researching all these years to develop some special abilities of the human race. You don't understand it now. Anyway, I don't know much about this. You will know in the future. Xia Huyo said softly, Assistant Teacher Bai Feng is only at the 7th level of the Soaring Heaven realm, but even Xia Yuan of the Xia family said that fellow is difficult to deal with. The thing that has always been hidden in the back pocket has not been exposed. It might be related to Master Hong's research project. Once it is exposed, this fellow has the hope of competing with Xia Yuan. If you choose their faction, you might be able to obtain great benefits. Of course, there is also a possibility that you might not obtain anything. Xia Huyo said, he chuckled and said, however, I feel that you actually don't have much to choose from. Teacher Zhao's side is also fine, but for the others, unless you go to the Divine Pill faction, it is better for you to acknowledge Bai Feng as your teacher. Your first teacher is Master Lu Wenyan. If you don't have talent, then it's nothing. If you have talent, then you're Master Lu's student. If you come here and don't join Bai Feng and the others, there will be some trouble. Suyu gently exhaled and said in a low voice, Master Lu, was Teacher Lu very famous in the Great Xia Civilization Academy back then? Sort of. Xia Huyo smiled and said, I really don't know the details. I only know some small news. Anyway, back then, Master Lu was at the academy and didn't get along with many people. Now, those people have reached a high position. Think about it, it's been 50 years. How many changes have happened? The current principal Wan and vice principal Zhou, I heard that they didn't get along well with Master Lu back then. Su Yu frowned and nodded. He didn't ask further and asked, what about Zhao Li Laoshi? Weapon forging faculty. Xia Huyo pondered for a while and said, to be honest, it suits you quite well. Zhao Laoshi's personality is protective, and weapon forging faculty doesn't lack resources. At the very least, for the middle and lower class students, they have enough resources, but their prospects are limited. On the side of the academy, the weapon forging faculty only has one Shanghai realm expert, and he hasn't come out of seclusion for many years. If you are a middle-ranked student or a low-ranked student, I would recommend you to find Teacher Zhao. However, since you are a high-ranked student, I would recommend you to find assistant by phone. Xia Huyo said seriously, of course, it's my personal suggestion. I have only heard about it from my family a few times, so I don't know much about it. Su Yu nodded and thanked him. After hesitating for a moment, he said again, there's a struggle at the academy. I want to ask, to what extent? You mean, will people die? Yes. Xia Huyo smiled and said, not in the academy, but outside. It's hard to say. This thing, it's really hard to say. At the very least, no one has ever caught it. But sometimes, some people die when they go out. Who knows what the situation is like? It's pointless to ask about this thing. Just be more careful. Then, does that mean that there is still a guarantee of safety in the academy? Of course. Xia Huyo said seriously, this is the Great Xia Civilization Academy. If it wasn't for the manor head, the strength of the Great Xia Academy might not even be comparable to this side. The Civilization Academy that has been passed down for hundreds of years cannot even guarantee the safety of its students in the academy. In that case, it can just close down. Here, you can set things up, you can play tricks, you can even openly challenge people, but if you secretly want to kill someone. Just wait for your death.